Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah. Greetings to everyone world over, all our brothers and sisters across the globe, in the different countries, in the different continents, in the different time zones, wherever you are joining from. Great salutations to you from Major Dr. Gulshan Sharma, the Director General, International Chamber for Service Industry. We are live with about 131 countries where our advisors are in place. And ladies and gentlemen, today is just the one day after the budget has been presented, Indian Union budget for 2022, and education, how it can be in the nation building. We have got a distinguished panel. Today we are going to take higher education. Tomorrow we will be taking school education. Friday we will be taking on women empowerment in education. Saturday we will be going to Northeast and ASEAN. And Sunday there will be a panel discussion with the non-resident Indian from 18 different countries. But all deliberations are focused only on education, skills, and relevance of education in the coming times. Wednesday, 2nd of February 2022, 3 minutes past 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. We extend a very warm welcome to Professor Prem Vratji, Professor J.S. Rajputji, Dr. Furkan Kumarji, and Professor Dr. S.P. Singhji, Professor P.B. Sharmaji. I'll be reading their detailed profile little later for all of you. Just let me roll few slides, set the context. Why are we here? What are we deliberating on? And what exactly is the agenda and the vision we want to take it ahead? Ladies and gentlemen, today is World Wetlands Day as well, world over from the United Nations, which is being celebrated. And we have to take conscious decisions with the global warming right over here. Now, also today is a Rheumatoid Arthritis Day awareness. A lot of people, particularly our elderly people world over, particularly in the cold regions, they are having lots of challenges with their health. So what is rheumatoid arthritis? And I wish to share with all of you, every Saturday during this pandemic, we have completed 75 webinars. Every Saturday, 7 p.m., we bring Ayurveda for the global wellness, where we take on the questions of all our distinguished guests who come and join us on the programs. So do join us every Saturday, should you wish to get something on Ayurveda. So with these words, International Chamber for Service Industry extends a very warm welcome. 31.46 million Indians, overseas, Indian diaspora, our brothers and sisters, we are proud of you. During this pandemic, lots of challenges for all of us, doctors, nurses, paramedical people, they have taken whatever best they could do. And our chamber decided with the UNESCO when we learned 1.65 billion children are away from schools, colleges, universities, institutions. So we took a conscious decision, why not we should focus on 3 buzzwords, making education relevant Monday to Sunday. No break in between. And today is almost, we have completed 1,430 webinars. Our chamber is focusing on services sector. Education is a part of services. Skills is also a part of services. And agriculture, manufacturing, they also need support of services sector. Journey goes back to 1988. While being on deputation with the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, we set up India's first institute, Indian Institute of Tourism and Travel Management, and drafted the whole MBA Tourism, which was launched in 37 universities simultaneously. Coming from the armed forces, we also brought the hospitality sector together. And in Bangalore, we had set up Army Institute of Hotel Management and Catering Technology. With the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, India took an initiative way back in 1999, when very historic and innovative efforts were done based on Indian tourism, domestic tourism, India's geography and India's history, 6 months non-stop throughout the country by road, All India Tourism Quiz Contest. We are proud in a very humble way We drafted all these programs for the UGC, and all are related to services industry. We are basically bachelor in service industry management, masters in service industry management, bachelors in airline, tourism and hospitality management and master also, and media entertainment, rural development, mobile computing, health spa and resorts. We are also very happy that with the help of the Indian diaspora, we brought India's first finishing school network in 1994 focused on services sector. And that was basically to help our youth and our teachers. And we are very happy to share. If you go on the AICT website, right on the home page, under the vertical education, you'll find finishing school being listed over there. Under the RUSA policy also, if you see, Rashtriya Uchitar Shiksha Abhiyan, that was humble contribution from our chamber. More than 52,000 youth and almost 35,000 teachers, they have gone world over from the chamber through various programs, what we have done when we think about creative thinking, critical thinking, and all that buzzwords which we have got. The only thing in the last 2 years, the chamber finishing school, which was brick and mortar, it has gone totally digital. And the best part is, it was such an experiment where we have learned how music, how art, how craft, how dancing, how storytelling, how humor, how happiness, how positive thinking can be the part of entire finishing school, which has gone digital. And now we have renamed it E-Gurukul for service industry. Now, these are those words which I was listing out. You can have the music, dance, games, happiness, humor, fun, creativity, curiosity, storytelling, stimulation, passion, talent, stress-free, technology-based, vocational skill-based, outdoor, nature-based. Satish Kumarji, who is about 85 plus year at present in UK, he walked from India all the way to New York. It's a wonderful story. You should see the UNESCO's program of the United Nations, you'll get to know. Education should be relevant to our day-to-day life. Why not we should learn, which has got relevance right from the time I get up in the morning until I go to sleep. We are thankful to Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, that 4.5 years with the entire ministry set up, we worked on 12 services sectors, 12 champion sectors, and education and skills also is the integral part of the same. From there, we moved on to micro, small, and the medium enterprise services. And almost 3 years, we worked with them. The pandemic had come, the pan-India, the services sector to be brought at par with the manufacturing sector, and lockdown had come in between. And we took 3 buzz, making education relevant. We are grateful to Honorable Finance Minister. She was that time when she was taking care of the Commerce and Industry Minister, there was a vision of those 12 champion sectors. And now on 13th of May 2020, during the thick of the lockdown, she declared and announced after Atmanirbhar Bharat vision of the Honorable Prime Minister repackaged. And there it was that the manufacturing sector and services sector now will be at par and there'll be one definition. We are extremely, extremely delighted and happy. During the lockdown, Chamber has focused world over, and we are for the teachers and the youth. And we are so grateful. More than 12,000 speakers have come from the world over during this pandemic on this platform, and almost about 10,000 plus people joining us every day. It's a great, great humble gratitude and thanks from our side. Now, ladies and gentlemen, new education policy, 29th of July, after 34 years. Well, this policy, when it must have been designed and framed, that time pandemic had not come. Although it's being announced just after a couple of months after complete lockdown, but nobody knew that what challenges are on the way and what exactly is going to be there. We are working very closely with all 37 sector skill councils under the NSDC, under the aegis of Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. And we are grateful to Dr. Nirmaljeet Singh Kalsi, the chairperson and the chairman of the National Council for Vocational Education and Training, the National Skills Qualification Framework, and the QPs which are being designed at this point of time. We are working on those verticals and we are proud of him. We start our journey early in the morning from Australia and New Zealand. Then we come to ASEAN, then we go to Middle East, then we go to Central Asia, then we go to Mauritius, Seychelles, and we go to entire African continent. And in the evening at 8 p.m., we come to beautiful Bharat, because by that time, the Canada is having morning tea and coffee. And of course, the United States and Latin America also joins. And people in European Union, they're finished with their lunch and they are ready for their evening tea. Here is the web portal, that is icsiindia.in. And our focus at present is, when India is thinking about 1 trillion export of services, why don't we focus on our educators, our teachers, our counselors, our technocrats? IT and ITS alone is giving more than 50% exports today. If India is Youngistan, India has got young people world over where the population is aging. It's education, education, and education. Education, skills, and micro, small, and medium enterprise are inseparable. If we want to become Atmanirbhar Bharat, if we want to go beyond 5 trillion economy, women empowerment, vocationals, technology, training, skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, all that we are taking. Every Saturday, we dedicate to Northeast India, linking with the ASEAN, 45 million people this side, and 450 million people that side. All the 10 countries and 8 beautiful states of Northeast. Here is the Ayurveda for the global wellness. That is every Saturday, 7 to 8 p.m. Sunday morning, our president joins us from United States, from the Woodbury University, Burbank, California. Every Sunday we dedicate, it is Shiksha ko prasangik banaye and Vidya se Adhyatam Vidya ki aur. What is the journey onward? What we are talking about: holistic education, holistic leadership, holistic vision, what all is to be brought in education. And every Sunday evening, we have a special program with NRIs. And this last Sunday, we had the dental tourism services exports just 3 days back. NRIs for India's education and skills, and we had discussed in detail. So Napoleon Hill, long time back, I read this book, read. Of course, Alan Toffler, when we met for the first time, when he was writing a book, Future Shocks. And thereafter, of course, Napoleon Hill wrote long time back, whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Let's come together. And we all are coming together. And these are the efforts. Today's evening has been brought by Professor P.B. Sharma-ji. It's his wonderful efforts. He has brought the confluence of the wisdom, the reservoir, what we have got, intellectual capital of India when we talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice Chancellor of the Amity University, Gurugram, Founder Vice Chancellor, Delhi Technological University, and the past President of Association of Indian Universities. I'm not in a hurry. I would like to do justice with the topic, subject, because generally what happens is when you have a panel discussion, you rush, and you say you've got 5 minutes, you've got 4 minutes, next speaker. No. Intellectuals, they require time to put their perspective. So that's what we would like to request all our distinguished speakers today. But from the chamber, in a humble way, we wish to recognize all of them. He is a reputed academician, currently the Vice Chancellor of the Amity University of Gurugram. He has been Founder Vice Chancellor of Delhi Technological University. He is a former professor of the IIT Delhi, former President of the Engineering Science Division of the Indian Science Congress, former Chairman of Indian Society of Mechanical Engineers, and former Vice Chairman of the World Confederation of Productivity Science India section. During his long association, lasting for nearly 25 years, what basically became Delhi Technical University later, he is contributing great to academics, research, administration. He was the master visionary of the innovatively designed new campus of DCE and has to his credit the rise of DCE and DTU. to high global esteem in frontal areas of research and development and innovation. A doctorate from University of Birmingham, UK. During his professional career spanning over 50 years, he has made distinguished contribution to the advancement of the frontiers of knowledge in the areas of mechanical engineering, aero engineering, technology, power plant engineering, new and renewable energy resource and knowledge and innovation management. He has been the chairman of the Central Counseling Board of the Ministry of earlier Human Resource Development, which is now Ministry of Education. It is for the benefit of everybody world over, because a lot of Spanish people, German people, Italian people, and other language people, those are joining us. So everybody should know what is the contribution of these distinguished speakers. Those are joining us in the panel today. He also mentored One Asia Foundation Project Japan and nurtured innovation enabling, that is Amity University, Gurugram, to file 166 patents and making it a hub for solution research. Hearty welcome to Professor P.B. Sharma ji. Ladies and gentlemen, right in the August gathering world over, I would like to pay my respects to Padma Shri Professor, J.S. Rajput ji. I would like to tell his full name, Jagmohan Singh Rajput ji. We hold him in a great respect because great contribution to the country. And here he is conferred by our former President of India at the Rashtrapati Bhavan this award on April 8th, 2015 for his meritorious and very, very distinguished career with the education ecosystem. Professor Rajput ji, he's an educationist, writer, and the former director of the NCERT. After his stint as a professor at the Regional Institute of Education, Bhopal, during 74 to 77, he served as the principal of the institution till 1988, when he was appointed as a joint advisor on education to the Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is in India at present known as Ministry of Education, for the benefit of those people, those are from other languages. A post to be held till 1994, when the National Council for Teacher Education, this is something very, very important, because teachers today are at the helm of the affair, and our focus has to be on teachers in the new education policy, also 50 hours. When it was established in 1994, he was made the founder chairman of the council, where he served until he moved in 1999 to NCERT as its director. So there's a lot to know from him. What exactly is the status? How can we build future teachers, global teachers, innovative teachers, creative teachers? Because I personally feel in my personal capacity, youth, they have got a lot. They are very comfortable with social media and other gadgets which are available. It's our teachers. And thereafter, when he relinquished the charge from the service in 2004, and during his tenure as the head of the NCERT, it was reported that he brought in regulation in the B.Ed education by distance education method. Now that is again very important. Digital education is now given impetus during this pandemic, and particularly in this budget. We would also like to learn from him today how the distance education in the B.Ed program is very important and how do we go by. And he introduced a 2-year B.Ed course. He has also represented India in UNESCO Executive Board 2018-21. You would be happy to know that Mr. Eric Falt, the head of the UNESCO, is also a part of our today's program. UNESCO honored him with Jan Amos Comenius Medal in 2004 for his contributions to educational reforms in India, and he received the Maharishi Veda Vyas Award of the Government of Madhya Pradesh in 2010. The Government of India awarded him the 4th highest civilian honor of Padma Shri in 2015 for his contribution to literature and education. A hearty welcome to Professor J.S. Rajput ji. And I wish to make a mention that during my young days, early marriage, my wife always used to tell me that we should listen to Director NCERT Rajput ji. So today, Sakshat बहुत ही प्रसन्नता. Professor Premvratji. Premvratji is a very distinguished, uh, distinguished, I would say, educationist, visionary, and think tank, whatever you would like to tell him. He is the professor of eminence and the chief mentor at the North Cap University, Gurugram. Professor Premvratji is the chairman, board of governors of Indian Institute of Technology, Dhanbad, with additional charge as a chairman, board of governors of IIT Mandi. An outstanding academic, Professor Premvratji is the pro-chancellor, professor of eminence and chief mentor at the North Cap University, Gurugram, formerly ITM University, Gurugram. Just prior to joining ITMU as the vice chancellor in September 2011, he was professor of eminence at the Management Development Institute, Gurugram. Professor Vrat Sahab, he's the founder director, IIT Roorkee. I'm very happy because Dr. Nirmalji Singh Kalsiji has done his program over there. So he must be enjoying because he's watching this program. Vice Chancellor, UP Technical University, Lucknow, now known as APJAKTU, Lucknow. Professor, Head Center for Management Studies, Coordinator, Applied Systems Research Program, Dean, Deputy Director and Director at IIT Delhi, Professor and Division Chairman of Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok. He is an honorary professor at IIT Delhi and distinguished adjunct professor at IIT Bangkok. I'm very happy to share our immediate past president till 13th of January. He holds the largest hotel chain in Bangkok and he is from Thailand, Professor Narula. He was chairman of board of governors of WIT Dehradun, a constituent institute of Uttarakhand Technical University, and he is AICT Distinguished Chair Professor. Professor Premvratji, he was an honorary research fellow at the Department of Engineering Production, University of Birmingham, UK, and an international visiting fellow at the University of Western Sydney, Australia. He has extensive experience of more than 53 years in teaching, research, management, development, and consultancy. Ladies and gentlemen, we must do justice with the testimonial, the accomplishment, and the hard work and the vision of all these dignitaries. Sometimes somebody may feel such a long CV or such a long bio. There may be, they have given 53 years to education. And we must recognize them. Here comes Professor Dr. Furkan Kamarji. He's a professor of management, Center for Management Studies, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Dr. Furkan Kamarji, he's presently professor over there. He has served as the Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities, largest and one of the oldest network of universities in the world. In his illustrious career, Dr. Kumar has held the position of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Rajasthan and the Central University of Himachal Pradesh. He has also served as Advisor Education in the Planning Commission, which is known as Niti Aayog at this point of time in India. Essentially a professor of management, he has keen research interest in public policy. Now, this is something very important when we are talking about education vertical, public policy, planning, administration, and financing of higher education, and has numerous publications in journals of repute to his credit. Professor Kumar Shah, he has chaired and been members of a large number of committees, working groups at the national and international level. Dr. Furkanji brings with him academic eminence, leadership qualities, and exposure to best global practices. We extend a very hearty welcome to Professor Dr. Furkan Kumarji. Ladies and gentlemen, person always laughing, smiling. I saw him a couple of years back. He's as young, as smart. I think he is following our Honorable Prime Minister's, the yoga program very religiously, because the green cover in the northeast part of India is maximum fresh air, fresh thinking, and altogether positive organic food. Professor Dr. S.P. Singh Ji is serving the second tenure as a Vice Chancellor of the Assam Royal Global University, Guwahati. He has been heading institutions of repute since the last 20 years and is a well-known academician and administrator. Prior to his current position, Professor Singh was the director and vice chairman of the Sherwood Group of Institution, Lucknow, from 2001 to 2009. He also worked as founder director of the Royal Group of Institution, Guwahati, from 2009 to 2013, and later also served with the Amity Group as senior vice president and vice chancellor of Amity University, Chhattisgarh, from 13 to 16. With more than 3 decades of rich experience in teaching, research, academic, administration in institutions of repute across the nation, he is a geologist, MBA, and a law graduate with PhD in strategic management. I'm very deeply, linked, and we would like to know something from him, the strategy for higher education in India, particularly after the budget has been announced. Professor Singh is also an ardent baseball player and has been actively involved in various social and cultural activities since his university days. No doubt that's why he's always smiling, laughing, and enjoying. Professor Singh is holding many important positions, including the member of the Executive Council of Dibrugarh University, Assam Task Force, active member of the Universal Peace Federation. We would like to know about this as well. India chapter since 2019 and had been conferred with the Ambassador for Peace Award by UPF South Korea. We would like to know about that as well. Member of Indian Chamber of Commerce, ICC, yes, based out of Calcutta. National Expert Committee on Higher Education and Training for the year 2021 onwards. And ladies and gentlemen, till date, ICSI has completed 1,426 webinars, and we have done during this pandemic 46 international conferences, more than 12,000 speakers. I become more humble, including the entire UNESCO team. I'm so grateful to all of you. And this program is also going live at this point of time, world over, in different time zones. So subscribe, YouTube channel GS Motivator, like it, share it, comment it, wherever you want. We want to reach out because education in nation building is very, very important. So ladies and gentlemen, join me in extending a very warm welcome, Professor P.B. Sharma ji, Professor S.P. Singh ji, Professor Prem Vrat ji, Professor J.S. Rajput ji, and Dr. Professor Furkan Kumar ji. Whole world, we join and we extend a very warm welcome to all these distinguished guests. And the other day in a very humorous way, because I always believe why people are so serious. Why don't we have happiness? Why don't we smile? Why don't we bring humor in education? And if you don't believe me, there is a Dr. Ramachandra, and his father got the highest award in India. He's a practicing doctor in America. And he tells me, Dr. Sharma, tell me one thing when he came for the program, why there is no humor in education? Why don't we have that? I said, we will bring it to you. We all are very humorous. We are very happy. I will start with Indian, Einstein, Professor P.B. Sharma ji. When I look at his hair, when I look at his stature, I always tell God, why haven't you given me hair like Professor S.P. Singh ji? Why I don't have the hair like him? But well, it is genetic. I can't do anything. I'll ask my father when I go up. But ladies and gentlemen, if you feel young, if you think positive, if you remain positive, and if you find positivity all around, the world is a beautiful place. And मैं अपने सारे आयुर्वेदा के लोगों को दोषी मानता हूं. वो अपनी नॉलेज अपने साथ ही लेकर चले गए. उन्होंने किसी के साथ शेयर नहीं की. That entire knowledge is in the graveyards today. It's lying over there. They are turning in their graveyards, but nobody can take the knowledge from there. Let's share the knowledge. Let's share the wisdom. Let's make this world a beautiful place. And today, while focusing on the budget 2022, today we are focusing on higher education. Tomorrow we'll go on school education. I would request Professor P.B. Sharma ji to start, and thereafter then we take on the journey forward.
Thank you so much indeed, Dr. Gulshan Sarma ji, for putting us together in such a very distinguished panel of my very respected colleagues, Professor Prembrad, Professor Rajput ji, Professor Furkan Kamar, and Dr. S.P. Singh ji. I've worked with almost each one of them, and I'm so delighted to be here this evening, and that too to discuss and deliberate on the making of new India and what the budget of 2022 presented yesterday by the Honorable Finance Minister can do to create that new India of our dream. People like me firmly believe that education is not merely an enabler, but in true sense, a vehicle of transformation of a nation, not only of its economy, but of its people and of its overall ecosystem, which make us cheerful, happy, and blissful, and assures a blissful life of 100 years or more, as our forefathers have destined. Having said this, let me say that the budget presented by the Honorable Finance Minister yesterday gives me a tremendous amount of happiness and also an assurance that India of not only 21st century, but 22nd century is being created. Because all of us who have heard the Honorable Finance Minister yesterday, we find that the budget has been created, crafted, and prepared in a manner to provide India a major flip to leapfrog from its current level of utilization of technology to a new level to which we would imagine the 22nd century to be. Having said this, let me also say that I was also a little bit disappointed because the budget for education is merely 1.1 lakh thousand crores, which is 1/5 of the defense budget of our country. If our nation continues to spend only 1/5 of the defense budget on education in a country of 1.35 billion people, where we are always praying as well as working 24/7 to place India into the trajectory of the top-notch universities of the world, and also to enable India to become the Vishwa Guru, which our mentors are echoing day in and day out, then I think 1/5 of the defense budget for education is not enough. This works out to be almost 2.5% of the national budget, while for the last 20 years, I have been hearing that India will graduate itself to its economy from the point of view of spending almost 6% of the national budget on education. We are still far behind. Having said this, let me also say that the budget of education is always looked into two compartments, one to which more than me, Professor Rajput ji understand better, and that is the school and secondary education. And the second one is what we call higher education, that includes professional as well as technical education. Realizing the fact that the budget is always bifurcated 60-40, you have very small money left over for 1,000 universities in the country, where we have 100 plus institutions of national importance, including 22 or 23 IITs, matching number NITs, and great many other high-profile institutions classified as institutions of national importance. But money alone is not really the criteria for creating a country of great knowledge, great skills, and great knowledge power, which we have in our dream. More than money, it is the strategic framework by which you go around creating a society which is not only enlightened, but skilled and enthused and inspired to create India of their own dream is very much required. And from this point of view, I would have liked, of course, many more Kendriya Vidyalaya to come. I dreamed about 1,000 new Kendriya Vidyalaya, 1,000 new Navodaya Vidyalaya, maybe 1,000 Sainik schools also, so that everybody could really have better fitness than otherwise guaranteed. I would have liked more money to come for technology innovations research and innovations of the kind which are required today to create India of our dream, where we would spend more money on sustainable innovations and technologies of the kind that will make India in true sense inclusive in terms of its development. I would have liked the focus of education budget to be on creating highly educated and empowered and skilled rural India, where I would have gone with high-tech mind, with scientific solutions to create the kind of India which I have in my dream. I'm not here for supporting merely by giving some doles and money in the accounts of the people. I'm here to prepare them, to prepare for life, both in the rural as well as urban area. I would have liked more emphasis on money and funding for research in areas which matter. I want more money for research on water technology. I want more money to be spent on research and R&D and centers of uh, research and innovation, but also test houses in my country, so that the universities of India are empowered for not only research per se, but for a support system to create India where the testing and certification alongside with high quality research. I would have liked more money to go in the area of research and development, leading to higher end research and development centers in higher, what we call the herbal drug technology and the life tech, because I am on record to say that the next tech is life tech, and we need to pay a lot of attention to body tech, mind tech, food tech, soul tech, and also actually technology that create bliss and happiness on the faces of India. Overall, I would have looked at the budget from the point of view not only of strengthening the economy, but also moving India much higher in the happiness index. Currently, we are among the bottom slave of the happiness, and that's why maybe Professor S.P. Singh has a great enthusiasm to smile. People like me find it difficult to smile very much when I look at my country at the bottom of the happiness index. But all this requires, in my opinion, a carefully planned and strategic framework for educating India. I would have created Advantage India through investment I make both at the university as well as at the school and college education. Let me finish by saying that, having said this, let there be a ray of hope. And this ray of hope is primarily from the point of view of much greater commitment that has been made in the budget for the promotion of digital education. They have gone even to say that they will create digital university for the country. Not a bad idea. I want university network to be created. I want knowledge dissemination to take place in all corners of my country. I want the best of the teachers from one institution to be made available at thousands of universities and also even abroad. And I also want to see India to offer a cost-effective, high-quality education and research system, so that the intelligent and talented community from the world over, especially from the countries which are so friendly to India, could come and acquire high-quality education. My dream has been partly fulfilled, but I am sure that the movement is in the right direction, but a lot more need to be done. 2.5% of the total budget leaves us to imagine when would that day come. Maybe I would retire and go to God Almighty when 6% of the GDP will be spent on India, a promise that has been repeatedly made by our policymakers. Maybe that time will come when universities of India would be supported as much as we are supporting road and infrastructure and airports and buildings. Our universities badly require knowledge infrastructure as well as support for the most modern systems by which we are able to deliver the best quality education to not only those who come to university, but great many who are already in jobs, because the responsibility of training and retraining the current workforce as well as to take care of the future of the work lies on our shoulders. I need more support for that. I want my government to understand that great strength and economy alone may not be the sufficient condition to create the cheers and happiness in the billions of our people all around. It would also run short of meeting the agenda of inclusiveness, and it would surely let us down unless we take our education more seriously to create a sustainable and inclusive India, whereby the people, no matter in what corner of the country they are, could feel really irresponsible, blissful citizens of this great nation. I thought I must stop at this point because I have a very distinguished panel with me who have worked for several decades. I have worked for 52 years myself, like Professor Prembrath. This is my 52nd year in engagement in education, research, institutional administration, and university administration. And I surely wish that in the revision that may take place during the discussions in the parliament, more money should be made available to the university, to the research and develop the wisdom to set up 1,000 more Kendriya Vidyalaya, 1,000 more Navodaya Vidyalaya, maybe 1,000 Sainik schools also, because without the foundation of good quality school education, we will continue to cry for quality in our university system. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be part of such a distinguished panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Now, there are 2 points which I will take from here. Like it happens in United States, academia, corporate, and defense, they are working together. It is not separated. So I personally come from the armed forces. I personally feel academia should work very closely with the defense for the R&D also, DRD also, everything whatever has to be done. I think we got to bring the entire ecosystem. Nobody should be working in isolation, sir.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. At Amity University, we have started already master's program in defense technology, and we are looking at defense technology. But having said this, people like me have grown with the understanding that India is the Shanti Doot of the whole world. And the whole world is looking towards India to find lasting solutions for peace and harmony in the society, in the nation, and around the world. And therefore, people like me do believe that, yes, we will work together with the defense R&D and defense systems, even defense education.
Wonderful.
But that cannot be the sole purpose of higher education in India. Higher education in India has to look from a very different angle now that COVID-19 has taught us a lesson for purpose of education to the meaning and purpose for which I and you exist on this planet. We are not here merely to scale the economy and cause greater turnover of productivity. We are here to create a better world than the world which we have inherited from our forefathers.
Wonderful.
And if we cannot do that, then all effort of education will run short, in my opinion, in the right address. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. Professor P.B. Sharma ji, you are the confluence of this today's program, and kindly guide me. Whom do I bring in now? Because I have a tie between Professor Prembrath ji and Professor J.S. Rajput ji. So you got to guide me.
I'm so distinguished, very difficult to, unless you put a coin and take head or tail. But I think straight away go for school education and then come back to higher education. So let Professor J.S. Rajput sound actually his vision, because I personally feel that 60-40 division is perfectly fine, but I need more schools of the kind which I have dreamt actually throughout.
Great. And Rajputji, my personal request to you would be, I would be very keen to know how do we prepare our teachers? Because what I have learned with these statistics in a very humble way, there are more than 19,000 colleges of the B.Ed in India. But the material which is coming from there, I do not want to discuss about that right over here, how to prepare them, how to take care of them, and what is the requirement of basically teachers in India, and how much is the quantity of the product is coming. So quantity, quality, technology, speed, consumption, and world over where the population is aging. Please give me the roadmap for that, sir. I'm very hungry to listen from you on that as well. Professor J.S. Rajputji. Sir, you got to unmute your mic.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. And let me say another thank you to you for making reference to my NCERT days, and request you to kindly convey my regards and respects to Mrs. Sharma, to whom you made a reference to. I really feel very privileged to be in this August group, all of whom are known to me. I know their work, and I'm really happy to be with you. Dr. P.V. Sharma finished his presentation at the school education. In fact, about the budget he has given, what most of us think, and people like him and me, who have been in this sector for more than 5 decades, have also heard all along the 6% of GDP. Every government, and I can say it without any hesitation, has always promised, yes, we'll go to 6%. And this was repeated in 2020. And we hope someday it will come in our lifetime. So that point is very particular. But one thing I would like to mention before I go to teachers and teacher preparation, that you see the 68 policy. It transformed the lives of millions by one single recommendation that girls will also study science and mathematics till class 10. At that stage, it was considered to be a very revolutionary recommendation. People thought girls cannot read science and mathematics. Millions of young girls today may not know this, but they must know it. That one recommendation made the difference. And you see, states were resisting. They said, we don't have teachers, we don't have equipment, we are not ready. Well, slowly things did take shape, and now we know what. The 86 and 92 policies and the 68 policy, things moved at a certain pace. But the 2020 policy cannot move at that very pace. This is the time of unprecedented pace of change. I often say that 20th century was the century of change, and 21st century the century of pace of change. And therefore, institutions have to be alert, governments have to be alert, and now things cannot be delayed. That is the most important thing, and that is what must also be a consideration when the budget is presented and prepared for India. India of tomorrow. One of my rough estimates is, and it is very impressionistic and personal, that about only 35% of our schools are really functioning at the desired level of excellence. And from that, we have created a group of young people who have made a name for India right from NASA in 60s to Silicon Valley. And everywhere, everybody appreciates our young generation for their achievements. Often I wonder, and Dr. Sharma will agree, if these 1,000 universities and those 15 million schools upgrade themselves to quality level, in quality levels, even that 35% of schools become say 70%, my cognitive capital would multiply manifold. Because we know investment in education gives the maximum dividends. Every country knows it, reports confirm it. And now, though this discussion is centered around the budget, whatever recommendations are made, the key person, the key performer is the teacher. Somebody mentioned me this morning that there are elections in 5 states and teachers must have been deployed there. I said yes. So many court cases, the court decisions have said they should not be deployed, but we know what happens to teachers. The other thing that I must mention, and Dr. Sharma hesitated to mention, that yes, quality of teachers, teacher-taught ratio, these are the things to be paid attention to. And this is something very, very particular. You cannot enhance the quality of your higher level research, innovations, initiatives of any kind, interactions with different ministries and different sectors, unless until your quality of teachers in schools is improved upon. And there are, and you see, it is so hurtful that sometimes we find that more than 10 lakh teachers positions are vacant. In universities, central universities, when I go to universities and they are kind enough to invite me for convocations, other things, and they tell me that 40% of the vacancies are there, 60% of the vacancies are there. Yes, as Dr. Sharma said, people of our generation are very high. When we were students, there was never a vacancy. The head of department was authorized to appoint a person, even if somebody goes on leave for 1 month or 6 months or 3 months, he will be authorized to appoint a person and classes will continue, work will continue. You can't expect good research. There are so many things about research. Now they are going to set up new organizations as per recommendations of the National Education Policy of 2020. And there is a lot of focus on research, there's a lot of focus on innovation. During the last couple of years, it has really gone very positive in the things, but resource crunch remains and impedes whatever good intentions we have. The absence of the faculty impedes our march towards quality and excellence. And that is, there you need resources. You need budget provision. You need interaction between the central governments and this. Some of the state universities function with, say, 10 regular faculty for years together. Can you imagine this situation? New education policy takes note of this, and it has said that there will be no para teachers, there will be no guest teachers, there will be no invited teachers, lecture-based presentation in universities. I don't think anywhere in a dynamic system it should be acceptable. Coming for a lecture and being paid as a daily wager, you have to give dignity to the university people. Dr. Radhakrishnan told us that intellectual work is meant only for the intellectually inclined. And therefore, this is something we cannot ignore. But as I mentioned and I repeat, you have to go to schools. And therefore, you have to go to those 19,000 teacher education institutions. Gunnar Medal in early 70s, when he published his famous treatise, The Asian Drama, mentioned that for these developing countries, teacher education institutions are the power plants of quality and excellence. Excellence should flow to every sector. If your teacher education institution is working at the level of excellence, certain values are followed, and the culture and the work culture there prepares people with competence, commitment, and devotion to performance. That is the essential thing. But unfortunately, I must mention, though it is avoided when international audience is there, that this National Council for Teacher Education, and I now hesitate to mention that I was its first chairperson, but I was. There was a committee in 2012 headed by Justice J.S. Verma, former Chief Justice of India. And the Professor Verma's committee mentioned 10,000 teacher training institutions are not interested in the quality, they are commercially interested in giving degrees. And we all thought that things will change. Unfortunately, a lot more needs to be done even today in 2022. This recommendation of the Verma Committee was repeated in the National Education Policy, verbatim repeated. Now you can imagine if these institutions, 10,000, have continued this way and have not focused on quality, what would be the number of trained teachers that we have produced who lack in competence, commitment, and performance indicators? That was it. When the NCT came in the picture, the intention was that certain basics shall be followed. That we shall not forget, we are preparing people, not giving degrees. This difference has to be thought of, whether it is a school or a college. And I can mention an anecdote. When my professor of physics in Allahabad University was young and had taught for 2 years, his head of department asked him, "How are you feeling?" He said, "I'm feeling good, but I am worried. I shall be doing this for another 30 years. I would get bored." Then the professor said, "Oh, you are only teaching physics. I am preparing students for life." And this young person understood it, the meaning, and it transformed his life. This small interaction transformed his approach to entire life. And I would like to say this, how do you prepare teachers? NCT had devised certain regulations in the beginning. People were very unhappy. And Professor Rajput was criticized as much as he was when he was NCRT director. 26 vice chancellors met in the UGC. The chairman of UGC presided, and they all told me that we have no business to interfere. We have our own acts. My response was that teachers are the key creators, key indicators of quality. Parliament of India has authorized me, the NCTE, to de-recognize any degree where certain norms are not met. So if you charge 100 rupees from a student, you must spend 85 on the program, 15 you can spend on things. Well, it worked. As a couple of universities, Professor Sharma would remember, stopped their B.Ed courses. That was not our intention. We wanted quality. So quality has to be brought. NCT at that stage thought of that we had the experience. We had the experience that teachers must be prepared through 4-year integrated courses, which has now been accepted by the National Education Policy. But in 2000, when I was in the NCTE 1994 to 1999, I had come there after my sojourn in ministry, and earlier 11 years as principal of the Regional Institute of Education, where we conducted 4-year courses. And we conducted certain studies which established that if you train a teacher for 14 years, give him a combined degree of BA, B.Ed or BSc, B.Ed, he performs much better than those who get a 1-year degree. But we also knew that to create 4-year programs throughout the country is a tough task. It will take time. And therefore, let us go to 2-year B.Ed course, which we recommended from NCTE and implemented when I came to the NCERT. It also worked very well. But anyway, today we are at the 4-year integrated courses. My only concern is to maintain the quality, the central government will have to come and assist, because state governments will simply say, we don't have the funds, and things may not move much. Therefore, from the budget, this is one of the expectations, because the dividends that would accrue from these teacher training institutions will be far more than any investment in any other sector. And therefore, 4-year courses recommendation could be critical in the next, say, decade for quality. And this, it will impact not only school education, it will impact every sector of human activity. Higher education impact, it will impact the medical education, civil services, everything. There we have to go and find out how we can really implement. We have the experience. We started these courses in NCERT in 1964, 63, 64. We have the experience, we have the studies, and therefore this is one thing that that must be encouraged and that must be pursued. I would be very much happy if those corporates or chain of institutions come forward and conduct these courses. They can be in the model, they can guide others, they can also help others. And the last thing that I would like to mention at this stage is the universities must consider it their obligation to associate with government schools, train their teachers, interact with them, find out what they are doing, what curriculum they are teaching. NCERT has a very standard, the very well-developed procedure of associating teachers and higher education researchers, professors in preparing their textbooks. I'm sure they will be following it in a much better fashion now with all the experience gained. But this interaction between school and universities is very essential. It is not only with universities and defense and other things. That is very important. Skilling is very important. I often say that when I visited China for the first time and visited their schools, I thought, well, they have advanced because they are following the basic education of Gandhiji. On some occasion, I could talk about it. They were doing all that was recommended in basic education in their villages. And the school was the responsibility of the village. Government will provide one teacher and say, you appoint 2, 3 more. You can increase and decrease their salary. This is something which impressed me very much. So unless until we go and study the Hindu Swaraj also, which is now being studied with much greater attention than when it was published in 1909. At the same time, also remember what Gandhi said, I don't want my house to be blown, but I would like to receive fresh wind from all along. मुझे हर तरफ से नए आइडिया चाहिए, लेकिन मैं ये नहीं चाहता कि मेरा घर ही बर्बाद हो जाए. और उसी को माइकल फुलॉन ने बहुत पहले लिखा कि चेंज इज एवरीवेयर, progress is not. Not every change brings progress. Therefore, these analytical skills, critical skills can be enhanced only if they are well enhanced in teacher training institutions. Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore had mentioned that every child when he is born gets two boons from nature or God. Power of ideas and power of imagination. Given education which does not impede these two boons given by God. Thank you very much.
What a pleasure. What a treat. Thank you very much. Very, very kind of you. Sir, in the second round, because my thirst is still there, my hunger is still there, and I would like to know the second round, distance education, when we come in the second round, how distance education can be brought in teachers' education. Because that was one of your recommendation. I would like to have a second round with you. And if you could kindly permit at this point of time, I'll go to Professor Prem Vratji.
Sure.
Professor Prem Vrat, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. We have heard Professor P.B. Sharma and Professor J.S. Rajput, and there are many things which, in fact, I almost echo their feelings on the topic. I would like to focus on our main theme of education as a nation-building process, and in the context of National Education Policy 2020, how do we look at the initiative taken by the government in preparing this budget? So I'll try to link up NEP 2020 with the budget that in fact is being prepared, and the focus would be on higher education as you suggested. In fact, to me, the National Education Policy is one of the most profound, powerful document, which for the first time, and it is the third one. First one was the Kothari Committee, and then Second Education Policy in 1986. This is an extremely comprehensive document, which has been extensively, is prepared with extensive consultations before and after, even at the draft stage. And to me, it could have been a major instrument for transformational of Indian education system as a major game changer. And therefore, as a document, it's superb. It has been evolved, and a very strong implementation policies have been also developed by AICT and UGC. So as a policy, it's a great thing, but a policy is as good as implemented. The policy may be very outstanding, and on that extent, it's a great policy. But unless we make efforts in implementing it in the spirit and the letter in which it has been prepared, and budget becomes an instrument of doing so. And therefore, I look at the national budget as an instrument of implementing the national education policy, which itself is an extremely wonderful document, very well articulated. And it, as Professor Rajput mentioned, it looks at the entire education system, right from primary to tertiary, as a seamless academic value chain. And therefore, that's the spirit of what he mentioned, that the higher education people must go to these schools. It's actually the spirit is contained in this national education policy, but looking at education as this seamless talent supply chain. But then, unfortunately, in fact, as Professor both the previous speakers mentioned, in the 1966 policy, Kothari Commission talked about 6% of GDP. 86 second policy talks about 6% of GDP, and even NEP 2020 talks about 6% of GDP. Now, one thing is for sure, the 6% of GDP is expected to be the minimum threshold if you really mean business in implementing quality education. Although, in fact, even developed countries like US, where private universities are in fact are flourishing, even there, the government spends 5.8% of GDP. The GDP is much larger, and 5.8% of GDP, even if US spends, and we have been almost chasing this this mirage 6% figure for last nearly 50, 60 years, which means that somewhere there has to be a change in mindset in looking at education. To me, education is a nation building process, as your title also suggests. The nation's collapse of education means collapse of the nation. And therefore, unless we change our mindset that education, a quality education, ought to become the topmost national priority, and in letter and spirit, or not simply in terms of rhetoric terms. And therefore, as a result, to me, any amount of investment in education is not too much. As Professor Rajput mentioned, the return on investment in education is such a tremendous return, particularly if you look at the intangible aspect of return. Because if you train outstanding people of great quality of mind and mindsets who become globally employable, the kind of return they can bring to the nation, in addition to developing your own nation, the kind of, in fact, to me, India can truly become a Vishwaguru by developing this talent to be globally employable. Because to me, that the demographic dividend, which has been talked about so much, is truly a potential gold mine the nation must pursue. And if this happens, in fact, that's the only way, to me, exporting outstanding, brilliant minds globally. And therefore, to me, if Indian education, a quality education, could be almost like that export zones, spatial education zones like SEZs, because as you believe that Indians, being the youngest nation in the world, as 55% people are less than 25 years of age, that's where they have the mandate of education system. And if we can develop these people, and when I say develop, means both mind and mindsets. Minds are intrinsically brilliant, but mindsets are not. And there was the holistic education which NEP talks about, who focuses on holistic education, which is quality of minds and mindsets. That requires the topmost education as a focus to me. And any amount of investment, we have to find ways and means, because not spending money on education would actually, the opportunity cost of not doing so is many times more than doing so. And that's why I said, perhaps much more than the specific budget, we need to change a mindset towards budgeting and funding education. By looking at education, and when we talk of education, the biggest single success factor is the quality of faculty and teachers. To me, is the faculty, funding, flexibility, and freedom. If you have these 4 Fs in that order of priority, perhaps the education, in fact, would be nurtured. We've been talking about it, but the instrument of budget being an instrument of implementing our intention, perhaps leaves many things to be desired. There could be constraints of money. I can understand that. It may not happen overnight. But when for last 60 years, we are talking about 6% of GDP, at least I would imagine that this NEP 2020, which also supports 6% of GDP towards education, at least we must fulfill, because right now, the current ratio I roughly worked out is somewhere around 3.1%. The highest was at 3.5% in the entire education in 2001 or in 2001. The highest figure was 3.5%, which we have not been able to reach. And right now, currently, 3.1% is almost half of what even the NEP talks about. And therefore, as a result, I believe that to show justice to the sincere implementation of national education policy, that promised 6% of the GDP must be found for funding education. Because that's, to me, mind is almost a minimum Lakshman Rekha for doing so. But then money alone is not going to get you. What you require, as Professor Rajput mentioned to me, nurturing outstanding people with great quality of head and heart, and nurturing them to choose teaching and research as a preferred career option. That's one of the most difficult tasks. But unless we create a mindset in the society where the best and the brightest of the society would choose teaching and research as a preferred career option, this calls for a change of mindset of the society towards teaching profession. And therefore, if budget becomes one of the instruments, but apart from budget, the societal change mindset towards teachers, so that if best and the brightest come to the teachers who are able to inspire the younger generation, then only we are able to fulfill that. To me, it's a great opportunity lost if you are not able to enrich this demographic dividend potential while making Indian. To me, IT, although IT is a great thing, you can see the impact, but to me, I look at IT in a much wider context. To me, IT refers to Indian talent. And this Indian talent across the spectrum, not only information technology, but in almost every sphere of life, in technology, in business, in law, in architecture, in religion, in spirituality, in yoga, you just name it. To me, if you're able to nurture people so that the best in them comes out across the canvas, to me, therefore, it's time that we nurture that Indian talent in the form of IT, which is much bigger canvas. And the information technology in ICT then becomes an enabler in nurturing that Indian talent. And therefore, this way, we can use ICT as an enabling technology, but the goal should be to nurture the Indian talent who not only are outstanding in terms of mind and mindsets and are globally employable. Because the global employability, which in fact is a combination of knowledge, skill, and attitude. While we are focusing on knowledge component in traditional education system, skill part is now for recently now being, but then to me, attitude is a fundamental success factor, and it's an integration of knowledge, skill, and attitude put together that to me constitutes holistic education, which to some extent the NEP 2020 talks about. And therefore, in that context, if we change our mindset towards educational investment, which to my mind, any amount of investment is not too much, while the government might have some difficulty in immediately supporting it, at least through policy interventions, it can empower the society. For example, a very simple point I make in the context of higher technical education, which has been my sphere of activity for the last 54 years or so, about 80% of the education in higher technical education is in private hands, in private universities. Now, our attitude at looking at the private universities as if these people are untouchable. For example, when it comes to funding a research proposal from a private university or private college, there may be reasons again why it's so, because then there are ways to take care of, you bring in transparency, accountability, account for every rupee that is invested in private education. Where does it go? So there are ways and means to do that, but then we have to provide a level playing field. And if 85% of the higher education and technical and management field is in private hands, and none of the funding is made available from government sources to these, then at least we create a condition where philanthropists and the industry is mandated. Maybe CSR has becomes an extremely important instrument, mandated at least one. There are 2% mandatory CSR funding, make at least 1% of that must go for education. Because to me, education is a game changer. And we have to have a change of mindset that nothing is more important than education, because all that we are doing is the after effect of not investing in education. For example, in law and order, the low employability, berojgari, all these to my mind are symptoms of not investing adequately in good quality education and not nurturing outstanding, inspiring teachers to be brought into the educational institution. And therefore, as a result, we need to address the fundamental issues. And if I look at that from that context, the present budget, although it has some very positive points, it talks about the digital university. To my mind, it seems to be a digital first education budget. It talks about digital university, which indeed is a hybrid of some richly funded public institutions in hub and spoke model. It's a wonderful idea, but we must also understand that any amount of virtual education cannot be a replacement of real education. It can be supplementing to it. I mean, any amount of virtual digital teacher cannot be replacement of a great outstanding teacher in flesh and blood, because the very presence of a great inspiring teacher itself makes a transformational impact on the taught. And therefore, as a result, because we robotize teaching, we can't bring the emotions and the values of a teacher in it. So while in a supplementing mode, it's a great thing. And I welcome that great initiative, because it will bring the GR in a very substantial, it increase the GR in a big way. It will increase our reach of education to the unreached. And to that extent, this initiative of digital university, 750 virtual labs, 75 e-vidya, simulating the situation, and 200 TV channels for promoting education. And these are all very positive initiatives, I must say that, and they must be honored. Bringing the concept of a foreign university in a gift city again is a very good initiative in STEM and fintech. But bringing foreign university to India with total freedom to perform, they will not be under the rules and regulations of Indian regulatory bodies. My simple issue is, as a very nationalist Indian, if we can bring foreign universities to be operating at their terms in India, what prevents our own Indian system of education and universities not to be given this similar, because the same level playing field? Because after all, to me, in fact, I would have looked at this way, instead of expecting foreign universities to come to India, I would expect nurturing Indian universities to become so globally famous that they would be requested to open their campuses abroad. That, to my mind, is a vision of India which can truly make use of that great Indian mind and mindset, so that we should be actually sending it there. Because right now, our mindset seems to be that anything foreign and outside Indian is great, and that's why Indian parents are spending huge amount of money outside in training. Not all universities where our students are studying are great universities, but somewhere a mindset is that if you study outside, it must be great quality. That mindset must change, to my mind. To me, while it's a positive thing to bring foreign universities, but nurture your own universities to make them globally competitive, so that people from outside the world would come to India. And I give that example of Nalanda, although we talked about Nalanda so much. I just give an example. I've simply recreate Nalanda, and you get a global Indian universities and all. For example, if you look at Nalanda, there are 2,000 students, all lived on campus. There are 10,000 students lived on campus, and there are 2,000 professors all lived on campus. So a simple arithmetic would show that the student to teacher ratio of Nalanda was 5:1. Even the best known universities globally are not able to reach a student to teacher ratio of 5:1, which indeed truly looks like a Guru Shishya Parampara or a Gurukul system. A residential university with the 5:1 ratio, a 9-floor building of library in those times with 9 million manuscripts. Imagine the kind of investment they had so a right kind of priorities were evolved. So simply we need to say, instead of simply remembering Nalanda as a rhetoric, create conditions Nalanda like, and you'd have global universities created right in India itself, where people, for example, if you look at the funding model of Nalanda, some 100 villages around Nalanda, their revenue was totally devoted to Nalanda. So that means the society is contributing, the government is contributing, and therefore, to my mind, since government alone cannot spend so much on education as needed, to me, I'll at least expect a 10% of GDP going to education if you truly want to become a wish guru. As I said already, no amount of investment in education is too much, because the opportunity cost of not doing so is much higher. And therefore, if we cannot have the 10% from government sources, create conditions. And I'll give you now, for example, if I donate 100 rupees to IIT, I can cut down 100 rupees from my taxable income, 100%. Now, but it does not happen if you give 100 rupees to a private university. To me, if you encourage society to invest in education, at least through policy intervention, bring a level playing field, that if somebody as a philanthropist likes to give money to education, irrespective of the form of ownership, irrespective of the private universities, private college, or a government college, put controls of misuse of fund by ensuring a public audit of where every rupee invested there, where does it go? Because there may be loopholes in that, and create conditions there to ensure that money is not misused, but then permit a level playing field. Because if people can get 100% tax exemption by giving 10 million rupees to a particular private university, and that's what happens in US. All the top universities in US are private universities. If this can happen there, why can't we create conditions like this? Because there, the amount of the income tax exemptions does not depend upon whether you're giving it to a private universities or a government universities. It's given to you that you're donating for a public good, for the education we get public good. And therefore, through such policy interventions, by making at least 1% of the CSR, which is mandatory, should be diverted to education, because education is a game changer, is the starting point, in fact, for all other improvements will come through investment in education. And therefore, through such policy interventions, we can perhaps make up and also expect the society to contribute, because after all, education should be a shared responsibility of all stakeholders. Society included, make their investment accountable. And if that happens, to my mind, it's extremely important. In that context, this budget, to my mind, is an incremental approach. Because if you look at the figures, the increase in the budget over last year, I'm talking the higher education only, the total increase in the budget in higher education this year compared to last year is 6.6%, which merely neutralizes the cost of living. And therefore, to my mind, if I adjust for the inflation, the budgetary allocation this year is almost inflation adjusted the same as last year. And the last year being a corona period, I believe that although we do talk about corona being a new normal, I only wish it is not treated as new normal. It was a new abnormal. I cannot expect my educational system to be considered to be new normal like in this manner, because to me, personal, all the digital education being granted all the enabling quality, but cannot be a replacement of a flesh and blood teacher and taught. Because to me, in any service system, and since you are a chamber of service industry, as you'd appreciate that one of the key requirements of service sector is where the customer and the service provider come in direct contact. By digitalizing, we are only making education as a product. A software is a product, but it's a service sector. The teacher and taught, as the educator, as a service provider, and the recipient of that service as a student, unless they come in personal contact with each other, the experience of the customer experience cannot be really realized. And while the digitalization is a great enabler in supplementing it, but we cannot replace the conventional wisdom of centuries of wisdom that the nation has been knowing and benefiting. And therefore, I only believe that this temporary hiccup of corona does not make digitalization as a new norm. Because as a supplementing mode, it's a great thing. I'm all for it. It enhances productivity, but not replacing teachers.
Wonderful, sir.
Digital teachers eventually cannot be replacement of real teachers. And therefore, in that context, if I look at this budget, for example, on Institute of Eminence, there's a 10 crore rupees reduction in the budget this year compared to last year. Scholarships have come down at 2,077 compared to 2,482. Digital India e-learning, the budget has come down from 645 to 421. Research and innovation, the budget has come down from 237 to 218 crores. Although UGC has been slightly funded better from 4,900 crores from 46,093. AICT got a 4 crore additional money. To my mind, it's a very incremental thing. Central universities have got a substantive 9420 from 76. And IITs have got increased increment. But what is important, 80% of the money in technical education is going on centrally funded technical institutions, which only comprise about 5 to 10% of the total in education. In order to have a balanced growth of education, because to me, since education, whether irrespective of the sense of owners, whether government or private, they contribute to the same objective of nurturing Indian talent to become globally employable. And so to me, if they're serving the same purpose of making Indian talent globally employable to make India Vishguru, then the form of ownership must not, the only differentiator should be quality and non-quality. While we severely handle non-quality investments in education, private and government, but quality education, irrespective of the form of ownership, must be encouraged. And for that extent, perhaps, to my mind, there could have been constraints of the national economy. And I only hope that this initiative of the budget this year, which merely adjusts for the inflation, to my mind, is an incremental effort, although initiatives in terms of digital university, bringing foreign university in the country. Hopefully one day the Indian university would also have the same regulatory framework as foreign universities here. So to me, it's a good initiative. Some of the efforts are tremendous, but the key performance indicators, namely investing in great quality gurus and teachers, investing in right kind of mindset towards education by the society, and getting the best and the brightest. So those are, to me, fundamental issues that need to be addressed. And that happens, I'm still very clear, given the brilliant Indian minds through education, if you have the matching mindsets to make them globally employable, it's a great opportunity to India to really reap that demographic dividend potential. I call it potential because it is still a potential only. To make it realized, we really need to look at education from the highest investment point of view. And nothing more powerful sector for investing in Indian future than in Indian education, and that quality education. And quality education means the topmost quality comes from teachers, because it's the quality of, as you again know in service sector, it's the quality of people that's the biggest single success factor in giving the quality of service. So if we truly want a great quality education, the quality of people, namely teachers and the other academic staff that goes with it, who are instrumental in implementing education, we must focus in getting, not only fill up the positions that Professor Rajput pointed out, that the thousands of faculty positions vacant even in fact even in central universities, but fill up with outstanding minds and mindsets, not simply filling up positions. I thought that these are some of my random thoughts, and
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Wonderful, wonderful inputs from your side. We have well taken. See, the thoughts which are coming, I don't want to interrupt anybody. I don't want to shorten anybody, because when ideas are flowing, that is the best which can be done in any nation building. And if you see right over here at the back, sir, it's a global educators forum. It's a e-Gurukul for service industry, and it's a global knowledge confluence. Just a few weeks back, Professor Jagdish N. Sheth, he joined us to give a very, very, very innovative inputs. And we are trying to bring NRIs, corporate and Indian best brains together to make a global think tank. And today I've got a new definition from you. IT is not an information technology, it is Indian talent. With these words, I go to Professor Dr. Furkan Kumarji, because it was a pleasure to hear you long time back. The fragrance is still there. When I saw you with the President of India, all the way in Imphal, Manipur. So Professor S.P. Singh ji would be kind enough, although he's sitting in Assam, but we met in Manipur. It's not very far. There's a direct flight. We can move in over there. So Professor Dr. Furkan Kumarji, kindly share your vision. And at the center of my fulcrum, again and again, although we are talking about the union budget, but educators, teachers, counselors, best of teachers, global consumable teachers, they can move abroad. Professor Dr. Furkan Kumarji.
Thank you very much, Major Dr. Gulshan Sharma ji. Thank you for the opportunities, and I thank Professor P.B. Sharma Sahab for introducing my name to you, or making you remember our earlier meeting at Imphal, Manipur. You have, thank you also for making us realize that time is not finite, so we can take as much time as we want to. That's very, very kind of you. But I do realize that the people at the other end who are receiving, they may also have their own commitments. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. You have put me in a great dilemma. In Urdu Mushaira's tradition, the gurus and the masters come at the end.
I think we have got a challenge with your internet.
Commitment mistakes, the masters would be able to take care of that. But here you have put me particularly in a different kind of dilemma. So if I say something, if that contradicts or in some way different than the masters who have already spoken, so kindly excuse me. It will not be for any other purpose except just to present my point of view. In the brief time that I'll take, I will first recount the points of pride that we have in our higher education system since independence till now. And then I would like to speak on the potential that the country has on many counts as far as higher education is concerned. And the third thing is the missed opportunities that we so far had And is there any signal that we are trying to catch up or we are trying to amend or mend for that? So it will be around that I would want to say. I take pride in the fact that after we became independent, our higher education system has made huge progress. Huge progress in terms of quantity, huge progress in terms of number, and I would also dare say that huge progress in terms of quality. At the time of independence, we had only 100,000 students in our higher education. They were all from economic and social elites. There were hardly any women. And today, when we are talking about the number of students in our higher education system has gone to 38.5 millions. Women are now shoulder to shoulder to men. Gender parity index has become close to 1. Of course, in certain disciplines, their number is much less. And with 2 eminent engineers sitting here, I would say that engineering education is one of them, where women's representation is much less. It's about 20, 25, 30%. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, other economically weaker sections, they are participating in higher education, and they do not think that it is a kind of courtesy that is being extended to them. Rather, they think that it's a matter of their right to get the best possible education that the country can offer. This makes me proud. And I would also say, although in most of the discussion, people lament about the poor quality of higher education, but I would say that yes, we need to improve. Our expectation from higher education is so high that we are not able to be satisfied with what we have.
I think once again we have a challenge with the signal bandwidth. I think when we are going digital university, digital education, we need better bandwidth. We need better connectivity. Instead of national highways, we need digital highways. We lost you in between, sir.
Achha, is it?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I don't know, maybe there is something
please go ahead.
Connectivity issues.
Please go ahead.
So I'm saying that I take pride in all of these facts. So the numbers, the party's inclusivity, the quality, although our expectation from higher education is so much that we think that we need to achieve a lot more. Otherwise, we have maintained with Indian trained manpower about a 2 trillion economy. And today, if we are dreaming to become a 5 trillion economy, that is on the strength of people educated in India. Having said these things, let me say that this national education policy that has been alluded to by several of my seniors and experts and eminent people had in a very tangible terms sets 2 or 3 targets, rather 2 targets I would want to emphasize. One target is that presently our participation rate in higher education is about 27% of the relevant age group. They want it to take it to 50% by 2035, meaning about 13 years from now. I did some calculations, back of the envelope calculations. To achieve that targets, we need to grow at about 6% compound annual growth rate. And presently, we have been growing by about the same rate of growth. And therefore, I have no doubt that this target would be achieved by 2035, if not by 2035, positively by 2040. And with the extension in the duration of the undergraduate program, and the chances are that most of us would, by this 4 years of undergraduate program, this will cause an immediate jump of about 10 to 12% increase in the gross enrollment ratio, because stay time of these students on campuses would increase. The second target that this policy has is that by 2040, India should have an education system which is second to none. And then arises the question that second to none by what parameters? And again, we would say that there could be a parameters of the number of higher educational institutions and the capacity that India has created. And I take pride in the fact that we already have more institutions than any other country in the world has. Not only the country, but even the regions or even the national groupings have. In fact, by one estimate, there are 160 countries of the world which have population that is less than the enrollment that we have in our higher education system. So in terms of enrollment, we are already number one, in terms of institutions. So 1,043 universities, and you already mentioned teachers training colleges of 19,000, approximately all taken together about 51,000 institutions, which no country has. In terms of enrollment, we are second only to China. And the chances are that in the next 10 years' time, we will exceed China in absolute number of enrollment as well. The demographic changes are such, and we are still a growing younger population country with the massification and universalization of school education, and all of these people are aspiring to receive maybe the old Indian ethos that we must get all education that is possible and within my means, irrespective of whether it will serve me a purpose of getting a job or not. That has been the kind of ethos. So we will meet that targets also. Now about this third thing is the quality, and that is where we have the biggest challenge. Today, the quality has become global. The benchmark has become world-class. So we are expected to be amongst the top 20 or top 100 universities of the world, and at least 1 or 2 universities of India, which are amongst the top 20 of the world. But somehow it is on those counts that we are failing. Some problem is with the indicators that these global ranking agencies use. Say, for example, if you are a European university and you are in Germany, and if there are people who are coming from Belgium, which is a 4 hours distance, they will be treated as international students. But in India, all those people who come from Manipur, Meghalaya, all the Northeast, all the way to Delhi, they are still not treated, and they can't be treated as international students. So the international global ranking agencies do not take these factors into account. We have diversity is important, but we have a different kinds of diversity. We have a gender diversity, we have a regional diversity, we have social group diversities. And if you take that into account, we are a very, very diverse system of higher education, or very accommodative of the diverse system of education. But still, coming into the top 100, top 200, top 20 is a huge challenge. India has had remarkable potential. Somehow we had many missed opportunities. I can go on recounting a number in all dimensions. I think Professor Premratji and Professor Sharmaji, Rajput Saab, they have already highlighted to this. I have written and I have mentioned that we had 3 challenges: expansion, equity, and excellence, these 3 E. And the solution to these 3 E, and I beg your pardon and with due respect to you, Dr. Kumar Sharmaji, I do not see any dichotomy between quality and quantity. Yes, there is always a trade-off, but the global history of the development of higher education tells us that you have to take all these three things together. And I say that expansion, equity, and excellence are like triple helix that defines the gene of higher education. You take away one and it mutates the whole gene of higher education, and you face the problem of the kind that you are facing presently. And the solution, and I think Professor Premratji has already said, to meeting out these challenges are the 3F, the funds, the faculty, and the freedom. And in fact, we have, despite our good intentions, but because of a different kinds of priorities, we have not been able to address any of these three issues the way we should have addressed. And lately, things have been sliding down much more rapidly on all of these counts. Faculty recruitment process has been seriously adversely influenced by a number of other factors. One, for reasons that appoint people on contractual guest basis, etc., and then regularize them, make them permanent. That compromises the quality of the teachers. So we need teachers of quality. We need funds, and it has been mentioned that the 6% of GDP is an old promise from 66 days. And Professor Tapas Majumdar used to say that in education, if everybody agrees on something, be sure that that would never happen. So since everybody have agreed that, okay, we would spend 6% of the GDP, and therefore there was no political push and pull, and therefore it never got implemented. Mind you, when Professor Kothari mentioned 6%, at that time he had estimated that education is contributing at least 6% of the GDP. And therefore, it must get at least that much back. Today, in a knowledge economy, education has the capacity to contribute a lot more. And therefore, as Professor Premrat said, and I fully agree, that we should rather be targeting at 10% of the GDP. Go by the economic survey of this year, go by the budget estimates. Our center and state expenditure on education put together, expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP is frozen at 2.8%. Of course, the budget estimates of this year, then the revised estimates of the last year had put the number at 3.1, but we are seeing the phenomena lately that budget estimates are higher, revised estimates are lower, and then the actuals work out to be even lower. So I'll not be surprised 2 years after that it again remains 2.8% of the GDP. This is despite the fact that even this national education policy said that we are committed to spend 6% of the GDP. Again, nobody contradicted, and therefore there's no politics around it, and therefore chances are that in which time frame it will happen, we do not know. Another example that I'll give you for missed potential. We in India have a policy, and since you are an international audience here, had a policy that all higher educational institutions are empowered to admit on supernumerary basis 15% of their intake capacity by admitting foreign students, international students. If you calculate 15% of 38.5 millions, that works out to about 6 millions, close to 6 millions. So that is the potential of India to educate or to bring in international students to our country. What is our actual number? 49,000. Even if you say that, okay, globally only about 5.5 million students leave their home to receive higher education in other shores, and India will never be able to have all of them here. So, okay, set a 20% of the targets of the market shares of this higher education exports. Even by that parameters, we are nowhere. And that is despite the fact that, and this is my deep sense of sorrow and regret that I say, that we had promotion of Indian higher education abroad. We had many other policies, and now we have the Study in India program. And despite that, the numbers are not growing. And in the meantime, a lot of reforms are happening in higher education. Although in your introduction, you said that this policy is coming after how many years? 39 years?
34 years. 34 years.
And I have done that ever since independence, our higher education has been in transition. Every 10 years, every 15 years, some commissions, some committees, some recommendations. And like now, from 2007's National Knowledge Commission till this National Education Policy, we have been continuously in a kind of flux or in transitions. And the transition brings in uncertainty. I'm not talking about the pandemic-related uncertainty, I'm talking about the policy-related uncertainty. And as a result, beg your pardon, that there have been a kind of confusion in the higher educational institutions, what to do, when to do, how to do. Nobody is taking a decision. Nobody is sure what to do. At the institutional level, the per student expenditure has come down drastically because of the lack of funding. So we need to do these things. Lastly, what we write, what we say, what we do, it has become increasingly difficult to make out. So say, for example, in the last year, one of the prominent highlights relating to higher education was that during this year, meaning 21-22, the regulatory framework would be changed. Has it? 1.5 years gone, 1 year is gone. It has not. 1.5 years policy is gone. It has not been brought up. That uncertainty is still continues. And since our economic survey and the budget documents do not have a tradition of first mentioning that what were promised last year, how much was it achieved, and why we could not achieve if we have not been achieved. Every corporate, you represent corporates, I think this is one of the features that whenever you do budget making, the audit committees and others do first look at that, okay, in your next year budgets, what were the performance of the last year budgets? And therefore, somebody had said, and I'd conclude with that they said that even today when we talk about reforming the higher education, and if you read Calcutta University Commission of 1913 and the recommendation that it had made, don't want to go to colonial time, read Radhakrishnan Commission report of 1948, and their recommendation would still look so fresh that you would feel that if they were implemented at that time, we should have been really the leaders in higher education in the world. So thank you very much, Gulshan-ji, for giving me this opportunity. I think it's time to speak what needed to be spoken in a true nationalistic sense.
Very kind.
One very final thing. Universities are now being made to do many things. Teach, connect with community, do skilling. Primary role of the universities is production of knowledge, creation of knowledge. The real strength of higher educational institution lies there. And when that happens, then others listen to universities. And if that does not happen, then the universities are forced to listen to all others. So presently we are in that situation where everybody else keep on telling us in the higher education that you do this, you have not done this. and therefore you should be doing this, and unless you do this, and people buy this argument. So focus on research, 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 and then disseminate it as well. I'll end. There's an old doha, and I'm sure that though your audience are international, but many of them do understand Hindi. Eke sadhe sab sadhe, sab sadhe sab jaye. Moola hi siichiye, phule phale aghaye. If you try to take care of every part of the tree would dry up. What you need to do is that you must water the roots, and then it will blossom, and then it will give you fruit, and then it will give you all the nourishment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are as fresh as we started the evening because Canada has just woken up. America has just got woken up. Latin America also got woken up. And most important is that all the time my thoughts are going when Professor Rajputji was saying, Professor Premvatji was saying, and you also made a mention about it, funds, faculty and freedom, and expansion, equity and excellence. I'm just trying to grapple as much. And you touched my very sensitive nerve. That's the services exports of education. And now I'm going to beautiful Northeast. When I look at those 8 beautiful states over there, and when I look at those young boys and girls bubbling with the energy over there, I personally feel they have got a lot of acumen to go as a services exports, as a trainers, as a coach, as a teachers, as a counselors, and whatsoever we want to talk about in services exports of education. Let me go to Professor Dr. S.P. Singh ji.
Thank you so much, Major Dr. Gulshan Sharma ji, and all other very, very distinguished panelists here. And when you were introducing Professor Premvrat, Professor P.B. Sharma, Professor Furqan Qamar, I personally know all of them. And fortunately, I got a chance to work with Professor Premvrat for quite some time in Lucknow when he was the Vice Chancellor of AKTU. And the experience what they have is my total age. I'm 53 years of age. And then many of you have joined profession except Professor Furqan Qamar. I think he is a little younger than Professor Premvrat and Professor Sharma and Professor Rajput. So if, as Professor Furqan Qamar has said, that at the end, when I'm speaking, I'm very, very not that accomplished people who are standing here, but I'll try to bring in some idea and some thought. And if somehow I may touch upon something which may not be correct or not very appropriate, I may be excused, and I take liberty of this board to give me a chance to put my words forward. I probably will try to, stick to, because everything has already been said from Professor Sharma to Professor Premvrat, Professor Rajput, Professor Furqan Qamar. I think all the points which budget need to touch upon and which NEP and budget has to have a congruency, and also about what we could not achieve, what we missed, what we have done. I think it was a very, very important session for me. I think all the audience, including me as a panelist here, have learned many things out of it. I did a little research yesterday, and I requested my team members out here to prepare something for me. As we are from Northeast, and Professor Furqan Qamar has categorized that maybe one day we from Northeast will be treated as a foreigner in other universities of the country, and QS ranking and THE ranking will be easy for us, and vice versa also, when people will come from other places and come to Northeast. And there's that kind of culture. In Northeast, sitting at Royal Global University, I tell you, we have a very, very good cultural mix of all the states of Northeast, and some from Calcutta and some from Bihar. And believe me, it is such a diversified university in Northeast that you will find maybe most of the time not that kind of diversified university in many countries of the world. I'm not talking about all those developed nations, but this diversification is diversification in country itself, not coming from other places, but we are trying to find out students from Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and also from Thailand. And in due course of time, that will also happen. And that probably we are doing more for ranking purposes than less for other purposes. Professor Furqan Qamar was talking about 15% foreign students, but at the same time, the AICTE to UGC, if you want to have foreign students, you have to have that kind of infrastructure. and facilities, and therefore that many time we are not being able to attract foreign students. As far as budget is concerned, I think we all, as Professor Prembrath has said, this is absolutely incremental budget only. And we were expecting a lot because last year Corona came. We thought that budget will not be showcasing the required amount of money for education because the country is suffering because of Corona. So 21-22 budget, we compromise and we expected that it's all right. Let us see next year what will happen. Next year again, it is the same, almost the same. And if I say go for the statistics of it or evaluation, it was 93.224 crores. Last year, it has gone to 104 crores, 104,278 crores. This is, sorry, 1,04,278 crores this year. And last year, it was 93,224 crores. It has increased by 11%. It has increased by 18%. One of the Hindustan Times today's article says 18% from last year, as Furkan Kamar has said. Last year, EU is allocated budget, and then expenditure. So there are a lot of dichotomy here: 18%, 11%. But if you see the total outlay of budget, I mean, last year it was 34.8 lakh crores the total, and this year it is 39.45 crores lakh crores. And if you see the percentage, it has gone down from 2.67% to 2.64%. The major component. So there is some shortfall, but then statistics say if I'm a person who has to put up my point there, I will say last year total expenditure being done by only 83,240 crores, and this year it has increased by 20% or 18% of last year total expenditure. So this is all budget, and economics and statistics is many a time a lot of deceiving things are there. So I will not go into details and depth of it, but I have done a good research on that. The total outlay for higher education with respect to secondary education, school education, has also gone down in terms of percentage. 40-60 has become 39.2 this year. It has never come to 39.2. It was always 40 and 41 and 42. So that part is also gone down. So what I wanted to say, this is all right. Maybe still the government is having some limitations in some sector, therefore they are unable to do it. And Professor Prembrath has rightly pointed out research and innovation and many other fields we are still. IITs, IIMs, and other institution of eminence has got good chunk of money. I don't know, maybe new IITs or maybe the earlier existing IITs is going to be strengthened by that. That is a good sign. But research and innovation, and most important, because out of all the panelists here, I'm working from last 20 years. Professor Prembrath knows from 2001. I was director of Sherwood College of Management. This is my 21st year in private sector as the head of the institution. And I feel something which Professor Prembrath actually has said, and I have taken clue from there. And I will now just take 2, 3, 4 minutes, which I'm trying to put forward. Maybe in due course of time, that will become a new strategy. As Gulshan Sharma ji, you said that you want to know about this strategy. Or maybe it doesn't work, it may fail also. But I, as a strategist, see a lot of hope there. And Professor Prembrath and Professor Furkan Kamar, both are from the discipline of management and will definitely try to give me the feedback on my thought, which I initiated way back in 2018, when around 450 vice chancellors and all IIT directors and everybody was there in the Vigyan Bhavan in front of the Honorable Education Minister of that time. And he raised a question. And that question goes to, because time is less, I'm trying to just conclude in another 2, 3 minutes. The time was with respect to only one E, that is excellence. That is also quality. And then about number, GR, and equity, which has come later on in NEP. So all 3 E's, expansion, equity, and excellence. And then we talk about funding, faculty, and freedom. I said answer lies in nothing else, not even to the extent of that gradually will happen, but answer lies in funding mechanism of the education system. And I stand in front of all and I said very clearly that funding mechanism of the education system is not for level playing. What Professor Prembrath said in other ways about the funding for the research, I'm talking about funding of the student education by the country as such. GDP is 3.1. Once upon a time, it was 3.5. It may be 2.8%, but it will become 6%, 8%, and 10% if government decide to have a strategy to create a situation where private and public have a level playing. Why I'm talking about this? Because this is my 21st year in private sector, and I'm very much, and I'm doing two research scholars of mine are working on this, and Professor Furqan Qamar, you are known for having research and funding of education institution. I would definitely come and speak with you on that. But I started this thing, and I've wrote two articles in AIU also on this issue 2 years back. If we try to change the whole mechanism of budgeting and funding from subsidized education to scholarship-based education, I'm making it very clear, subsidized education to scholarship-based education. If 96 crore rupees recurring expenditure is being done in one university to teach 4,000 students, the per student expenditure, which comes to 2 to 2.5 lakhs for a simple education of BA and BCom. And if a private university and private university system is providing the same education or maybe better quality education in a lakh of rupees, we have to see why it is happening, number one. And number two, level playing is that if the funding mechanism is through scholarship and each and every child, depending upon the capacity of the family to sponsor fee, maybe my child may not be given 100% scholarship, maybe 50%, 25%, and some coming from the lower strata of the society will be given 100% wherever they take admission, like in United States of America, they should be funded by the state. And depending upon those things, what will happen, I tell you, the level playing will gradually start. The student, all the cream, the top level country intellect goes to all IITs, goes to all NITs, goes to all engineering colleges, not only based upon the talent and quality, also very major impact is of the fee structure of those institutions. So miss a lot. The private institution miss the cream. We get either A or mostly B or B plus grade students. And then the expectation of quality comes from all around, because as a teacher, I'm telling you, the teacher, I want to teach gradually with my efforts best of the students, which probably we at times do not have level playing in the system, and we do not get that student. An expectation from NIRF to NAC to QS and everybody that what is going to happen with your placement, what is going to. So this level playing, if not, will happen. And what is the advantage of this level playing for the budget, which I'm going to conclude? The advantage of this level playing is that now we have around 450 universities in the private sector. We have more schools and colleges in the private sector in the secondary education. I tell you, in higher education, if this level playing will start, and there can be checks and balances, because many people will try to misuse it. In the UP government, the scholarship has been misused by some of the colleges. But if we have checks and balances, it can be done. When it can be done with the gas cylinder in the Jura Yojana, in place of subsidy, it is directly going to the account of a beneficiary. It can be done in our system also, if we are very, very prudent and we do it. And that will bring quality and equity and equality and right competition between private and public. And the private will also start gaining good private institution, will start getting good students, better students than today. And gradually more and more people will come forward and establish private institutions and other systems. Right now, we are many times suffocated, not suffocated by funding. Promoters, if are good, they will fund. But suffocation is that with that much of funding, that much of effort, we are unable to bring that, what you, Professor Furqan Qamar, has talked about, is about the intellectual capital we are not being able to create to the extent we should have been created in the private sector. So Harvard, Stanford, MIT, all are private sector. Why don't we make a level playing field here and create not only Nalanda, Takshila, create Harvard, Stanford, and other institutions in this country also? And I'm telling you honestly, I may be too much ambitious about it, but if this will happen, and 20 to 30 years, we will be having MIT, we will be having Harvard and Stanford in this country. Otherwise, private institutions are always being treated at the secondary level institution. The student also chooses, most of us forget about 5, 6, 7, they have done that well because they have established 35, 40 years back. The rest of all will not flourish. We will not flourish, and we may perish if this thing will not change. So I have a strong feeling about that. And Madam Finance Minister need not to think so much about it. If this level playing is created, in place of scholarship, which has been reduced here, I should have thought it should have been increased by 10 times, and a scholarship-based education should start in the country, and that may happen. This is a big thought. Maybe I'm too ambitious about it, but I'm still working on that. My two research scholars are working on that. And I'm very sure one day I will be able to convince. I have done this with the Javadekar Sahab. I have done with the last education minister also. And in the assembly of Assam, Assam government, in front of the honorable speaker, I put forward, they appreciated it. I hope one day this mission of mine will fructify and budget will be very easy for all of us. Thank you so much, Gulshan Sharma.
Thank you, Professor S.P. Singh ji. You've got a very dynamic chief minister sitting in Assam, Hemanta Biswa Sharma ji. I saw him as a health minister. I saw him as a chief minister. Wonders can be done for that particular region as well. Now, with the closing remarks, let me just share and rewind once again, just fine package, and then we go for final round quickly. Our chamber is basically a podlock. It's a podlock, it's a confluence for the NRIs, for the corporate and the government interface. When initially 4.5 years when we were working with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, there are 55 sectors of the services sector. Out of that, 12 were taken. And I'm proud of all the people, 4.5 years, those worked in that ministry. That time, Nirmala Sitharamanji was the Commerce and Industry Minister. Coming to the Ministry of MSME also, everybody was talking only manufacturing. Nobody ever thought about services sector. Now, services is not only customer care, customer delight. The time has come, amaze the customer. The time has changed. It's amaze the customer, which customer has not even thought of that we have to take care of. And Professor Rajputji, I would like to have the closing remarks from you. Then I'll go to Professor Premratji. Then I'll go to Dr. Furkan Saab and finally S.P. Singh ji. And by that time, if Professor P.B. Sharma ji shows up, then we will work out because he was out of the campus when he joined. He's traveling home. My question is, and my concern is, my worry is not youth. My worry is not students again. They can be taken care of. My worry is quality teachers, need-based teachers, globally acceptable teachers, meeting the standards which are required world over, because Furkanji is going to help me on services exports. And when I'm talking about education services exports, there is a small component being taken. How many children are taking admission in India? There are 4 verticals which we have to take. There is a mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4. If my children are getting employment even with the foreign companies while working in India and getting a foreign dollar, that's again a services export. Number 2, I do not want to get into the statistics. What kind of a scholarship? Who are the people? Those are coming from outside. 49,000 which sir has given. I will bring it to 46,000. That is the actual figure which I would like to work on to. Now, second part is who are those 46,000? I don't want to get into details. How long, how duration, what kind, whether they are coming for 3 months or 6 months. We have carried out a global survey with 131 countries, sir. And people are interested to come to India, not for the graduation or the masters or something, or a simple taking arts, commerce, science. They are telling the hot selling cake, which is world over. That is, can you give something in spiritual education?
Yoga.
Can you give something, a mix of where I can live healthy, I can live happily, there can be more humor, there can be more happiness. Why the dance, music, song, singing, everything is not a part of education ecosystem? Why we are not taking that? And sir, my question will come to Professor J.S. Rajputji, where from I'll start. Sir, I am looking forward to need-based, globally acceptable teachers, how to groom them beyond B.Ed colleges.
Good. I think the first requirement in my perception would be every teacher prepared in this country must be fully equipped to teach in India. And once we achieve that, they would automatically become eligible to teach outside. We have such strong perceptions, time-tested perceptions about who can teach, how to teach, what to teach, whom to teach. If again, teacher training institutions, when I was referring to Gunnar Medal's treatise and the fact that they are the power plants for quality, they're the power plants of excellence, this is what I meant. Best should opt for the teacher education. When about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a lot of talk about education in Finland. Everywhere we talk about it. And when somebody asked me, I said, no, we are not eligible to talk about Finland because we don't respect our teachers. We don't give dignity to our teachers. In Finland, the toughest competition is to enter into a teacher education institution. And do you think the teacher who comes out of that program of 3 year or 4 year will not be eligible to look elsewhere? With certain additional inputs, he would be acceptable everywhere. But why should he leave? Because he has the openings in his own country. If our curricula of the teacher education institutions are fully modified and sincerely implemented in teacher training institutions in accordance with the stipulations in the National Education Policy of 2020, we shall have no problem in preparing teachers for international market. We will do that. We can do it. You had asked about the correspondence courses. Yes, when I was the chairman of the NCTE, I was known to have stopped several universities from conducting these courses. I did it because with 3 faculty members, they were enrolling 40,000 teachers. They were spending 32% on the program and rest on developing infrastructures. That was not permissible. And that says intentions are not on quality and excellence. And therefore, I often say, and what Furqan Kamar Sahab said, and also Dr. S.P. Singh, my suggestion is, why are we not able to have a Madan Mohan Malviya model of institutions, universities and teacher training institutions or in any other sector on the model of Madan Mohan Malviya, where everybody is involved? He had the initiative. People came forward. And there was nobody raised a finger about anything. Today you go to Banaras, this is the only place where everybody, whether he is educated or uneducated, is proud of the BHU and Malviya. That type of thing we have not explored. Let us explore that and put up some examples. That would be wonderful. Well, now the correspondence courses of say 20 years ago is very much modified. We have now online, offline, hybrid models. Policy has recommended, budget has also mentioned about it. So there has to be a different approach. The last point that I would like to make is, when we began correspondence education, we did not care about its credibility. It became number 2. And unfortunately, it continues to be secondary. Within India, it continues to be secondary. So naturally, if you are not able to bring it on par, you can't have much scope for it. And you can't expect brilliant people to opt for it. But now there is no escape. Now offline, online, hybrid models have to be accepted, and we have to work very hard on it. Say right from digital university to existing universities, and they collaborate, they come. There have been some initiative. For example, the establishment of the inter-university centers. I see inter-university centers for teacher education in Banaras. They have established one. And there the university people have to come forward to see whether that could be pedagogy, what could be the pedagogy of the higher education, how much it is needed or not needed, and how they can help, the university researchers can help transform the curricula and the entire activities of the teacher education institutions. Once we establish this harmony, we shall certainly have best of the teachers in large numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. You have given so much of time to us. My deepest gratitude and thanks to you. We will take your vision forward. Thank you, sir. Professor Premratji, my request to you is, we want to develop a global think tank for education, because we have got prominent NRIs. And you know, the best part of, I think every challenge brings new opportunities also. I had a pleasure to listen to more than 12,000 speakers during this corona, during this pandemic, and everyone has given something new to me to learn. I would request you, kindly share your vision, because you are so closely working with the AICT also. I'm very happy when we worked on the RUSA project with the Ministry of that time HRD. And it was in the Rashtriya Uchitar Shiksha Abhiyan, we brought concept of finishing school, where basically the personality part, the communication part, the creativity part, and all that we were focusing. And AICT in their drop-down menu have got finishing school today. On the home page itself, under education, you have got such a dynamic chairman and vice chairman and faculty and the team over there in AICT. Can we think about a strategy of developing a global think tank? Can we work out a strategy where we can bring some prominent NRIs like Professor Jagdish and Sheth? And his book is worth reading. Oh, I've read it 4 times during this pandemic. It's called Chin India. CHIN, India spelling, CH, he has put prefix. Chin India, he says, 19th century to Europe, 20th century to America, 21st century only half to Asia. 2050 onward, it will go to Africa. That continent is waiting, aspiring, it's hungry. And Professor Jagdish and Sheth, we are again trying to bring him. He is the one who met Philip Kotler. And before that in India, everybody was rushing only for medical, doctor, becoming a doctor, becoming engineer. And Philip Kotler gave him 1 chapter of the management in his book. And management education became the buzzword world over, and Indians were flocking, going world over to get management education. That is Professor Jagdish and Sheth. I wish to share with you, sir, please give your vision. How can we develop a global think tank for education where all the stakeholders, strategists can come together?
I think, I mean, to develop a global think tank is no big deal. You identify the people who fit into your expectation of being a global thought leader, and they get connected. In fact, that's where virtual hybrid mode would work wonders.
Okay, so you would be open to that idea.
One thing I must tell you, there is no dearth of such globally reputed intellectual faculty members who have all through worked in India alone. Only thing is, we also need to recognize that only when a person goes outside India, then we start respecting him. Identify people who are as brilliant as they would have been, and it's just that to get the recognition within, I need to first go out, and somebody outside India must recognize me to become recognizable here. To me, identify true intrinsic brilliant minds, both within the country and outside, and develop a virtual, platform of interaction. And the easiest thing is to develop a virtual network of global thought leaders who actually, to my mind, would be many Indians outside India, because if even Indians are so brilliant mind in my way that even outside, if you look at it, some of the best names, and you mentioned Jagdish said, some of the best faculty members even in America are Indians. Therefore, that's what I said, that if we can develop this network within the country, but then must be very fair, that it's not only that you have to start respecting your own people who have chosen to remain in India. And it's not because you got a stamp of having taught outside India, then only you become globally respectable.
Absolutely.
With an open mind, with track record of thought leadership, develop a virtual network, and let's see how it grows.
Wonderful. That's what we are looking forward to, and that's why we want to bring esteemed, distinguished, dignitaries and the visionaries like you. All of us, we should get together, sir. Professor P.B. Sharma ji brought us closer to you. You will bring us to some more. Let's develop a think tank which should be basically taking care of the entire global education ecosystem.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. My deepest gratitude and thanks to you for having joined and given so much of your valuable time. Namaskar, pranam aapko. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very kind of you. I will come to Professor Dr. Furkan Kumar Sab. My interest is on services exports from India in terms of education. And I'm looking forward to all the verticals. I'm not thinking only about few admissions in universities, colleges, and all in India. I'm also thinking that the people which are pulled in over here, how they can go for a short-term assignment abroad, work for about a year or two, get the foreign remittance to India, and that can be utilized for research, for innovation, for some other projects what we can take on related to education. Thirdly, most of the foreign companies, whether they are manufacturing or they are agriculture or they are services, those are coming to India. When they are hiring the manpower, why not our people, skilled people, trained people, innovative people, creative people should be the part of working with those companies? That is also a services exports, once again, which we have to take into consideration. There are different modes of services exports. How do we work on? Once again, concern is educators, trainers, counselors, coach, mentors, how that pool should be developed in the most creative and the innovative way. Professor Dr. Furkan Kumarji.
Thank you, Dr. Gulshan. I think the three issues that you raised, they are already happening. People in India, many of them who couldn't succeed in getting a job, in fact, tried their luck elsewhere, and they went abroad, and they did very, very well. Even in the international recruitment process, they are part of it. Even amongst teachers, to go to many countries, not only the Middle East, but also to even many of the developed nations in Europe and America, and you will find Indian teachers. I think what you mean is that how to scale it up to have much larger number than you have. And I think from that count, I would say that what we miss in India is a kind of ecosystem in our higher educational setup. We need to have an ecosystem which appreciates talent, which attracts talent, which nurtures talent, which grooms them to become the best. And I think this question is extremely important because other than Professor C.V. Raman, the rest of the Indians who got Nobel Prize, I'm not talking about peace, they were all those people who had their first degree in India, often their master's degree in India, went abroad for further studies, and there the ecosystem provided them the opportunity to excel, and they were appreciated, and they rose to that level to get the Nobel Prize. Why do Indians have to leave our country to get the Nobel Prize? Why can't we have an ecosystem within the country that Indians being in India, teaching in India, researching in India, get that coveted status? I think that leaves us with a number of things that we need to do. Having said this, one or two points that I had missed, and when Professor S.P. Singh was speaking, that reminded me. And S.P. Singh Saab is a good friend, and he is younger to me, and we often talk to each other very frankly. I think he spoke about the level playing field. I think the national education policy mentions repeatedly that the public and the private institutions will not be distinguished. The private institutions shall be treated at par in all respect. That is what it's repeating several times. The issue is that of implementing. The only condition that the national education policy puts is that these private institutions will have to be public spirited. And I do not understand the meaning of public spirited, because if by that we mean that they will not make any profit, so already private institutions are prohibited from making any profit. They have to be registered either as a society or as a trust or as Section 8 of the New Companies Act. So they are all not for profit. A second point that I wanted to add to what I said about this mode 1 of internationalization of students, that is bringing students. I think one point that you raised, Gulshan Saab, that okay, you offer those kinds of things about which India is known. And I think the national education policy has indicated rather quite lucidly that what are the areas. So it is saying that, okay, if you want to bring people from the developed countries, you need to have yoga, Ayush, dance, performing arts, kind of a thing. So these things are known. There are a few assumptions that we need to look at it, because we have taken it for granted that Indian higher education has a comparative cost advantage. And therefore, people should come to get degree from India, at least from Africa, from Central Asia, from other Asian countries. In fact, I recently got access to some data which showed me that all those people who are coming to India to get a degree, on an average, they bring in $10,000 per year. But those who are going abroad for higher education, the forex remittance outward is only about $5,000. It means despite, if you compare fees, if you compare cost of living, they appear to be comparative cost advantage. But if you take these two numbers, that we study in America and Europe, you have to take only $5,000 a year from India, while if any foreigners come to India, he has to spend $10,000. I think the reason is very simple. When people go abroad from here, they finance a part of their higher education out of their remittances, but a bulk of their higher education by earning there in that country. This fact point we have not factored in, and therefore even in mode 1, we are not succeeding. I think somebody need to take care of this. Either we have to provide for this opportunity, or we have to look for other USPs of Indian higher education to market it. But I think we should lastly also need to appreciate ourselves. When I was Secretary General AIU, I met almost vice chancellors of 400, 500 universities in various conferences, had interaction, and could also meet about 100 vice chancellors, rectors, pro vice chancellors from many foreign universities. All those who came from foreign universities, they were so much appreciative of Indian talent that they wanted to get them. They were saying that they are very hardworking. They have this aspiration to excel, and so on and so forth. So they wanted Indian faculty as part of their think tank. They wanted Indian students to do their PGs, etc. And nearly 99.9% of the Indian vice chancellors, including directors of the IITs, they were all lamenting that our students are very bad students. It is the coaching centers which are preparing them to come to their institution. They do not have that kind of talent, etc. So I think our oversupply of people had made us expect a lot more from our students, and therefore we are not able to recognize the talent that they had. And even in the interview process, normally when you interview people, you try to get the best out of that candidates. But in most of our institution, we will not be satisfied unless the candidate said that, sorry, I do not know. So that is the kind of attitude that also need to change. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful, valuable inputs of yours. I do not know if there is any study available. The people, those are coming to India for studies, when they go back to their country, had they studied in some other system, what kind of a career they would have made, what they could have earned, vis-a-vis when they have come to India, and when they go back, what kind of a occupation. And also you have touched a very important point, very, very important point. our children, when they are moving out and when they are doing a part-time job over there, only initial money they are taking, rest of the money they are trying to meet the expenses out of the part-time job, what they are doing. And some of them, they are working so hard day and night. So children, those are coming to India to study. If we want to increase that traffic, there got to be a mechanism to be taken care of by an institutions, that we should work out a system that they get an avenues and opportunities for working part-time jobs in India. That is also, I think, sir, which comes to, and very well said, my deepest gratitude and thanks to you, because services exports is next to my heart. And I always look forward to that. And it's a great learning. It's a great learning. Finally, before I go to, because my co-author is Professor P.B. Sharma ji, he'll come later. I would request Professor Dr. S.P. Singh ji, नॉर्थ ईस्ट के लिए कुछ स्पेशली बताइए क्या करना चाहिए, बिकॉज नॉर्थ ईस्ट का अब आपका न्यू नॉर्थ ईस्ट काउंसिल के लिए and particularly youth and women ke liye, there's a separate budget which has been given for 1,500 crores. And our focus is once again, although I am North Indian, born here, but last 50 years I have spent in Northeast. There is no place in Northeast which I have not traveled because of uniform, whatsoever you call, and I have never lost a contact with Northeast. Right? I would like to share and I would like to understand from you, how do we nourish our children as educators, as trainers, as counselors from Northeast region?
I think all panelists here and members, team members, they know the potential of Northeast. And when I was working with MIT, there were so many students of Northeast in MIT University, Gurugram, where Professor P.B. Sharma is the Vice Chancellor today, and all other universities of the country. I think it was a huge chunk of migration of students of Northeast to other parts of the country. That is Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, Gurgaon, Haryana, and other places. Gradually, with the establishment of good universities in Northeast, so one thing has happened, this migration has little bit stopped, but still people are going and they should go, why not? And when I think Professor Furqan Qamar was talking about, we have to see, and when in the Northeast, I always talk about, you are talking about the potential that the people who are going out of Northeast to study anywhere in the country, or the people from India who are going outside from India to study anywhere abroad, or the people from abroad who are coming to India for studies, what is the quality of those children? Are they coming here and going back with quality so that they are creating the intellectual capital of that country or that state? Number one, or they are just going because they have enough money to spend on that, and has been said. So we have to see these economics and permutation combination, and which is also very close to my heart. So Northeast students out of Northeast are doing excellent. The way Indians are doing very well out of India, Northeast students are doing excellent out of Northeast India, and they are known in all the parts of the country. However, in Northeast, the new potential which is rising and coming up, gradually in the field of nursing especially, Northeast is taking over Kerala. Northeast nurses and Northeast capital of paramedical courses, Northeast capital of medical lab technology, and the culture and the society and the quality of English, which has been spoken by these children. And they are very, very open to go abroad in Japan, Korea, and other states of Southeast Asian countries. There's a huge potential. Last year, NEC has been given 1,474.49 crores, and they could spend only 852 crores. I mean, they could not spend more than 852 crores. And this year it is 1,500 crores. I expect they spent 1,600 crores. The issue is not that what budget says. Budget says something else. Expenditure is altogether something else. And the institution like ours, I repeat again, we have so much of apprehension from NEC to state government to all central funding agency, though it has been said in NEP, thick and thin, clearly that there will be equal funding. Nobody fund us. If we are new university 5 years old, nobody have faith in us. If you are spending honestly and you have, a fee structure, which is maybe higher than definitely the government sector, we are being rated as, institution minting money out of it, though we are at the loss of 6 crores per year. So that is something which need to change in Northeast. And as I said, I conclude on the same point. If we really want that institutions in the country should grow, we have to give not equal level playing in the field of fee structure, but also with respect to the quality of students. Because today, honestly telling me, my family members are studying in IIT. They have studied in IIT. We have 2 professors here are from IIT. IIT is definitely known by many things, but most of the important thing, they are known by the alumni they produce, and they are known by the students they study there. And that is what is missing in many of our institutions, where we zeal and enthusiasm in MIT also earlier, in Royal Global University, in Sherwood College of Management, we have seen that the quality was not coming. Sherwood was better in the sense in Lucknow because the government of Uttar Pradesh at that point of time was providing full scholarship to the student from SC, ST, OBCs, and we could get many talented students coming from the second and third strata of the society, and we could make Sherwood one of the best institutions. But other parts of the country, I'm unable to do that much, which I can do as a potential person, may not have traveled abroad, may not have studied abroad, but I know the talent is here in India. And I'm not talking about me. I have met so many people. They are extraordinary. And I've met so many other people also, which have degrees from abroad. But I'm telling you, frankly, they are not talented, all of them. Some of them are definitely yes. So this is a dichotomy. We should not have that white skin or white, blood, or maybe white thing which we have done outside. We are capable. Only thing is, give us level playing. I'm playing cricket, and one side is already been cut by 1 foot, and other side is playing on 2 foot. How can we play throughout our life? Please let us know. This is my 21st year in private sector, and I feel deprived of only one thing, that the funding have been done. I tell you honestly today, maybe 25% of the student of the government institution will join private sector if the fee is being funded by the government. I guarantee for that with my experience of 21 years. I may be wrong, but I have seen this in Sherwood. People of Lucknow University professors were sending their children to study in Sherwood. And here also, but if they have money, they are sending. But if they do not have money, they compromise to take their student in 8,000 rupees full year fee in Assam Engineering College. So I emphasize service sector in Northeast India will grow if the funding will be proper. And I'm very sure this government of Assam is very, very productive, including speaker was noting down my points. And after the meeting, he said, I'm calculating how much we are funding to the universities and how much we will be spending in the scholarship. If 4,000, 10,000, 20,000 students studying in these institutions will be given a scholarship. So the counting has started. When it will fructify, I don't know, but one day. And final point of yours, which you asked with Professor, sorry, I'm taking this liberty. The quality of teachers will be directly proportional to the market forces. The day market forces will decide that I will not go and study with Professor S.P. Singh, I will be defunct. And that day my institution will close, and that day my department will close. That kind of dynamics, because the people in other countries are being paid on contractual 5 years. And then if they qualify for next year 5 years contract, and their remuneration is directly proportional to the number of students are appreciating and reading in their classes and subjects at maybe Harvard, Stanford, maybe my knowledge may be a little bit less, but this is, I have read, and that kind of market governed forces are required to increase the quality in teaching fraternity, because many people choose teaching as the last profession. It should be the first profession. Better than IAS, it should be Indian teaching services, that I always say. And the teaching services will become more prominent and priority than IAS. I think this country will grow. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. S.P. Singh ji. Very powerful, very wonderful. I assure you, because I have visited your university, I have gone over there. I assure you, my president is visiting in June. He's coming to India, and there's a delegation of the NRIs. I am talking about my own skin, my own people, my own brothers and sisters. Those have gone outside India, those 31.45 million. They are the part of us. They are very keen to do something with us. When the delegation comes, we will bring them to Northeast. It's my commitment to you. In month of June, we will get them. And meanwhile, something we will work out with this new strategy, the new budget. Now, today I've started feeling, and always that I have learned over the years, never stop a professor or a teacher or a lecturer or an educator in between when they are sharing their thought. Never, ever. Have you ever seen any panel discussion which goes for 2 hours and 40 minutes? I've given time to everybody because I wanted to take out the best, and I'm the best learner because I have learned from all of you so many good things. And finally, I've started feeling now that Professor P.B. Sharma ji is a co-host of this program. He's not a guest anymore. He's a co-host with me, because the reason being, he is the one who selected and he brought everybody, this entire panel. My deepest gratitude and regards and thanks to him. And I would request him to give the closing remarks.
Thank you so much once again. It's a great privilege to hear the doyens of higher education today in this panel discussion, speaking from their mind on the annual budget, which has been presented by the Honorable Finance Minister, keeping in mind what the nation needs, what the country needs, what the global world is looking at India for education. Having said this, let me talk for a few minutes like a management guru, being the fellow of the World Academy of Productivity Science. I know that government of the day is not going to give us more than 3% of the annual budget for education. Perhaps the previous governments also could not give 6%, which is the dream percentage in the minds of all my panelists, including me. So what plan B we have in order to ensure that the education sector does not suffer from the loss of funding from the government? We must look at plan B. Had Dr. Furqan been in planning commission, where he was as an advisor earlier, he would have always worked out plan B. And plan B, in my opinion, is something which is doable and which is implementable. Some ideas about plan B have been given by Professor Premrat already in his discrete thoughts which he has given on the budget. For example, if I have 3% coming from the budget coming from the GDP from the government sector, what prevents me to innovate and critically think, how do I make up for the remaining 3% which I require to provide 6% annual 6% of GDP as the budget for my education? My thought goes straight away to what Professor Premrat said, that for a very long time, the corporate social responsibility has been confined only to titbits. Why not think in a serious matter that one of the biggest beneficiary of education are the corporates and the industries, because that is where the quality of manpower as well as the quality of research which we produce in our university goes for a direct advantage. So why not I channelize bulk of the CSR from the industry towards education sector? Dr. Premrat has asked for a percentage of this to come. I would say surely that is an area which is a gray area, and I must ensure that almost 2% of my remaining budget I get from them. As far as remaining 1% of the GDP is concerned, Indian society was in fact the backbone for funding of education in ancient India, and it has remained in the forefront of funding up to the independence of my country and even many years after independence. Unfortunately, the support of the society to education sector had dried down thereafter. Maybe because of the wrong policies which we have, maybe because of lack of supportive environment that is required for philanthropy to grow. I remember when I was the Vice Chancellor of Delhi Technological University, a great industrialist approached me. He said, "Sir, you are a very innovative Vice Chancellor, set up a management school which is better than IIM, and here is a check of 110 crores. He said, I'm giving it to you, utilize it and set up a school of management in Delhi Technological University better than IIM. I drew the plans for it, presented to the government, but the policies of the day as well as the hue and cry from my friends who were least imaginative about funding of higher education shot it down by saying that the gentleman who is giving 110 may take away 10 acres of land of my campus, which was not to be. He was only interested to set up a school of management as much as it has been done in IIT Kharagpur, or for that region, a school of communication at IIT Delhi, etc. We need to be, as a matter of policy and as a matter of strategy, should drive the corporate world as well as the philanthropy coming from the society towards education. And if we fail to do so, we shall continue to cry. I can assure you the government of the day would never be able to spare 6% of GDP. Had it been so easy, they would have done it by now. We have the most talented prime minister. We have the most well-educated finance minister. We have so much positive environment in the country. all the time they are saying make education relevant. They are saying that make education as a powerful vehicle for transforming India. On one hand, we are saying all this. On the other hand, we run short of our willingness to fund from our annual budget. So I think the plan B must necessarily focus on maximizing and facilitating philanthropy to come into education, as well as ensure that the corporate and industry become a partner in progress of the education sector, so that the deficit in terms of the funding, because of the lack of the government funding, can be met from here. Having said that, let me also say with all humility that the government of the day has put in 5.25 lakh crores of rupees for defense budget. And they have also said in their deliberations yesterday that 25% of this budget will be made available for research and education, for, of course, related to defense. But I know that the defense education as well as defense research drives bulk of the scientific research as well as bulk of the new technologies and emerging technologies that we require, starting from new materials right down to the most sophisticated computing and information technology and artificial intelligence and its application. So why not we think of motivating actually the government, and through the government, the defense sector, to become a major partner for support of the research and development and those layers of university education which require major funding for strengthening our research infrastructure in our university. It's possible. In fact, in the advanced countries of the world, the research has been driven by the desire to strengthen the defense sector. And it has been so. That's why NASA has been at the forefront of research and funding, and also bulk of the research in university was supported. Even when I was in IIT myself, I remember Dr. Premrat may recall, the budget of the Department of Mechanical Engineering was almost 2 lakhs of rupees. And 40 of us were fighting to get a penny out of this. When I joined from Birmingham, I said to the head of department, I'll not take a penny from you for my research needs, for my research aspirations. And I got in those days 7.2 lakhs worth of funding project coming from Ministry of Defense to support my research need. It's possible, it's doable. And I grew as a tall professor in terms of research and development, even got a consultancy from Rolls-Royce for much of my work which I was doing, and I could recover the investment I made on R&D at least tenfold. And we are doing the exactly same thing in Amity University here. And therefore, I think this plan B must very seriously and critically examine what can be done to meet the deficit of 3% of the national GDP in education by innovative means, by pooling, in fact, the strength of the philanthropy as well as the corporate world, and also channelizing part of the budget of the defense, as the Honorable Finance Minister has said yesterday, 25% of this component for education and research is possible. Lastly, let me also say that Professor Rajputji as well as Professor Premrat have clearly voiced that without teachers, we will be nowhere. Without quality teachers, our quality will suffer very badly. But with folded hand, I pray to all my learned panelists as well as to those listening this debate that teaching is not confined today to the teachers alone. Today, students, bright students can join the teaching community, and in countries abroad in the great universities, teaching assistantship for the bright young minds of undergraduate as well as postgraduates are a valid means to supplement quality teaching in the classroom. Same is the case with postdoctoral fellowships. Unfortunately, in our country, we have never paid attention to postdoctoral fellowships. If I can legislate that 15 to 20% of the teaching load will be met from the postdoctoral fellows, which should be necessarily funded from the research projects as well as from philanthropy as well as from the corporate money coming to the university, bulk of my job of quality teaching will be taken care of. I would also facilitate an environment which Professor Furqan Qamar has said that when we go abroad, our children earn as well as learn. Why not learning and earning go together in our universities also, by facilitating involvement of bright students into teaching and research, management and several other responsibilities which we can work out, and I'm pretty sure it's possible. I also pray to the government, they must seriously think that scholarship support, especially coming at undergraduate and postgraduate level, was the major pillar of strength for attracting the talented student to come to research and also grow taller and improve. I myself, for example, could not have been here in this debate had Government of India had not funded me for my national overseas scholarship, and they gave me the freedom to study in the best university in the world. Some or other, at that time I selected University of Birmingham to go, and I don't regret it. The entire funding was from the government support. Today, you don't have national scholarships for funding, even for studying in the IITs and other places. The government cannot wash its hands from its responsibility of supporting the talented, inspired minds of students through government scholarships and the supports of the kind that is required. Last but not the least, let me also say that the teachers have to understand that we are not looking at university teachers as teachers. We are looking at them for performing the triple role of a teacher, of an eminent researcher, and also a practicing technologist or scientist or whatever they are in their own region. And therefore, each one of them, in my opinion, must contribute to resource generation within their own university. At my own IIT, I doubled my own salary every year till I was there in IIT, because I was earning from consultancy and several other measures. We could do that in all our university. Today, there is no constraint to consultancy earning in a university. So we have to be looking at some of these areas with an innovative mind, with critical thinking, with critical analysis to ensure how the dream of 6% of the total GDP of the country could be channelized towards education. 3% coming from the government, the remaining 3% being contributed from the philanthropy, from the corporate and industry, and also from various innovative measures, including active involvement of teachers to perform a triple role of a teacher, of an eminent researcher, and a practicing scientist and technologist. Wonders are possible. I tell you, then you will create an environment of creating high level of IPR in our universities. We will be able to earn a lot from the intellectual property that we create. And this is how the agenda of the universities of tomorrow is to be driven. If we continue to harp upon only teaching, I tell you, a student will say, sir, thank you very much. I can learn a lot from the digital university being established by the government. The prophecy of the management guru, Professor Peter Drucker, would then become a reality. In 1999, Dr. Peter Drucker is on record to say that 30 years from now, large universities shall be relics. They will be reduced to relics. That's what he said. And we are moving in that direction. The bells are already ringing started ringing. And if we don't take heed, another 5 years or so, the whole purpose of coming to a university will be lost if we remain confined only to teaching and imparting only knowledge to our students. We need to make education relevant. We have to make education as a powerful vehicle for transformation of our country, of our society, of our economy, as well as developing this nation as one of the brightest stars in the horizons of the nations around the world. This can be possible. It's doable. Let the brain waves echoed during this panel discussion guide the destiny of our country, and also give a tremendous amount of inspiration for our policymakers to think afresh and facilitate Plan B alongside with the budgetary allocation which they have made, so that we are in a position to serve the cause of the nation and cause of those 666 million young people who are looking towards us for quality education, support for their research aspirations, for their innovative ventures, as well as transforming this nation into one of the leading economies, as well as the front runner. Maybe then the policymakers who are dreaming of making India a wish guru will become possible. Otherwise, I tell you, the quality of education is going to suffer very badly. With these thoughts, I must thank Dr. Gulshan Sarmaji, as well as my very distinguished panel comprising of Professor Prembrat, Professor Rajputji, Professor Furkan Kamarji, and Professor S.P. Singh, all my very dear friends and colleagues, and I thank you them very much from the core of my heart for sparing such a valuable time. I never thought that this panel discussion will go so long. I was somewhere else, I connected, and I thought maybe by 9 o'clock it will be over. I traveled for 1 hour in my car. I found the discussion is still going on, which means, really speaking, there is a tremendous amount of thought process we need to pull together in order to work out solutions which could make our country, in true sense, a truly developed country where we would be proud of creating a new India of our dream. Thank you so much indeed for all your valuable time in participating in this. Thank you, Dr. Gulshanji, for facilitating all of us to come together for a cause so important, so dear to all of us. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So much of wisdom has traveled from our wonderful, distinguished speakers. My deepest gratitudes and thanks to all of you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, those are watching from overseas, the corporate, those are watching from overseas, and people, those are in education ecosystem overseas. Finally, we have got the solution right over here. If the 3% is coming from the government, and let's take it 2% coming as a CSR and 1% now. I won't go for any other vertical. I would say, my NRI friends, don't spend money in India for the next 5 years for any other cause. If you are really keen about nation building, let's focus on education ecosystem, making education relevant and taking care of every child the best possible way. And whosoever is visiting India, whenever you are visiting India, kindly, whenever you go to your village, your places and all, don't put the plaque over there. Don't spend the money on something else. Adopt few children, give some devices, give the better bandwidth, give the better connectivity, and let's work together, making a Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam in real sense, that we all live in peace and we live in harmony, and where defense is working towards peace with educational institutions and corporate. Jai Hind. Green morning, green afternoon, and green evening to everybody world over, all our brothers and sisters, because we are in